mimic all the failures around the world. We are a great country because we've always been, relatively speaking, a good country. We've always had the value of rewarding rewarding people who take opportunities and risks instead of beating them down. And none of that's happening in California. They're trying to shut down everything. They're even trying to they've even made efforts to keep churches from having, or people from having Bible studies in their homes at the extreme degree. Everything they do fails because it's a failed, flawed ideology. And that's what you get.
That's what you get. So who is going to replace President Trump as the nominee for the Republican Party in 2028? Well, President Trump was asked about that today. Here's what he had to say.
Trump, nice to see you got off the roof all right.
Yeah.
You said this morning that you probably won't be running for a third term. This weekend, Secretary of State Rubio said that he thought J.D. Vance would be a great nominee. You could clear the entire Republican field right now. Do you agree that the heir apparent to MAGA is J.D. Vance?
Well, I think most likely, in all fairness, he's the vice president. I think Marco is also somebody that maybe would get together with J.D. in some form. I also think we have incredible people, some of the people on the stage right here. So it's too early, obviously, to talk about it, but certainly he's doing a great job, and he would be probably favored at this point.
All right, the audio and the mouth weren't quite syncing, but you got the idea. What do you think about a Vance-Rubio ticket?
I'd be fine with it. I like J.D. Vance a lot. I think it's way too early to handicap this right now, so I'm not predicting what I think is going to happen. But what I will predict, or at least assert, is that J.D. Vance is in the driver's seat right now. At this moment, there's nobody who has the positioning to really step forward as good as what J.D. Vance has at the moment. Rubio and Vance, I mean, I might be very positive about that. I'm going to have to look at a few things. Marco Rubio has bothered me in past years. He was the Tea Party darling in 2010 and actually very good for the first 2 to 4 years of his time in the Senate. But I remember having private conversations with Raul Labrador of Idaho, former congressman from Idaho, current attorney general. And Raul was involved in some of those, discussions related to potential amnesty or whatever. And Marco was trying to get in to the Gang of Eight there in the Senate to try to influence it. And Raul was, telling me, I keep telling Marco, you need to back down. And Raul was, his law practice was mostly dealt with immigration law. So he's an expert on this, but he's very conservative, very excellent on the issue. And he thought Marco was missing it. So I've had my disagreements. He was on House Intel. He voted for the Patriot Act. I've had some concerns, but I've been very impressed with what he's doing in this administration as Secretary of State. I'm very pleased with it. So I'm open to it. But, there's a lot to come down the pike, more to find out. J.D. Vance is in the driver's seat. We'll see how well that holds up as time goes on. Anything can happen in the next 2.5 years.
Kristi Noem, I guess, has put this out. Coming soon to Indiana, the Speedway Slammer. Today, we're announcing a new partnership with the state of Indiana to expand detention beds by 1,000 beds. Thanks to Governor Braun for his partnership to help remove the worst of our country. If you're in America illegally, you could find yourself in Indiana's Speedway Slammer. Avoid arrest and self-deport now using the CBP Home app. What does that mean, by the way? Does anyone know? I knew they used these apps to get in. How would you use this app to self-deport? You have any idea?
Well, apparently the way I understand it is that you register. They're just using the same CBP app that the Biden administration was using to just have people, hey, we're checking in. Okay, thanks. And then they'll let them go. They've turned it around and had people signing up. They get $1,000 apparently to help with leaving, and then they're asked to leave voluntarily. If they don't, then they're not going to be allowed in for a long period of time. They get
okay. So the key is they get $1,000 to self-deport.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. What are your thoughts on? I guess what they're calling the Speedway Slammer. That's in your home state of Indiana, right? I mean, you seem to be building these all over the place.
I am a native Hoosier. I'm not a big fan of them using the Speedway Slammer. I mean, I grew up in Indianapolis. I always tell people my line is, I'm from Indianapolis. We run a little race there you might have heard of, right? I mean, that's the Speedway reference. And Speedway, Indiana is, right where the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is. I don't like the use of Speedway Slammer. I mean, I guess I get what's saying. You can call it the Hoosier Slammer if you want, because Hoosiers don't support illegal immigration. But listen, I think we need detention. We need processing facilities that can get people out of this country. Everybody's a criminal. It's not just the people doing criminal acts while they're here. Everybody that's here is legally is a criminal. So we've got to process that somehow. And I'm fine with those facilities being there. And to the extent that they help facilitate that process and speed it up, I'm all for it.
I guess the governor of Texas has filed at the Texas Supreme Court to remove these Democrats from office. Are you reading that tonight?
Well, there is a provision that allows for this. And if people abandon their seat that they've been elected to, there is a process to permanently remove them and then allow for those people to be replaced. I didn't look up what the replacement process is. But yeah, this is in the law. And I think it's even in the Constitution in Texas. He can assert it. I have to say, these Texas congressmen blow my mind, or these Texas House members blow my mind. They go to the most gerrymandered state in the world, as we talked about last night, and yet they're opposed to maps that are going to fix gerrymandering, because that's literally what the new maps do. They were gerrymandered beforehand, and they drew out Democrats into rural districts going down to the Gulf of America and the Rio Grande, instead of putting them in their community of interest in the major cities that they belong to. And they're also complaining, although the court has ruled that they don't have to have racial districts anymore. That's been eliminated across the country, at least by court ruling. And so they're fixing some of those issues as well. But this is a rational approach that I was kind of surprised it wasn't big gerrymandering. It's eliminating gerrymandering, and yet these people are arguing. By the way, I think it's falling flat. You're hearing a bit of noise about it, but it doesn't have anybody inspired around the country except radical Democrats that are determined to be against Donald Trump in this radical fashion.
Well, and look at this. Look at this from Ken Paxton. I will seek judicial orders declaring that runaway Democrats who failed to appear by the speaker's deadline have vacated their office. Wow. It's kind of amazing.
Again, the provisions there.
You know what? I like the saying that one of my friends told me. The trash has a way of taking itself out. I think the trash just took itself out of Texas.
This group of people I've seen, I don't know why, but they're all in my X timeline. Maybe because I keep replying to them with the map of gerrymandered Illinois that they're going to. But these people are what the arguments are making. Oh, we're trying to save ourselves from Donald Trump. Oh my gosh, it's like partisan map drawing. Is this the first time it's ever happened? Oh my gosh, we're doing it on a partisan basis. Are you kidding me? Almost every state does partisan map drawing. So their arguments are weak. They really don't hold up. Donald Trump isn't running this process. Of course, the National Party and Donald Trump would like a new map that would give a few extra seats. And I would be critical if I thought that was a mere political ploy. It's not. This is a straight up opportunity to redraw maps. We got a lot more map redrawing to do because we have illegals that are counted in the census and things are really skewed as it is. There's a lot of this work that needs to happen. This should just be the starting point. But yes, you're right. The trash does have a way of identifying itself. And Donald Trump and the way he runs the Republican Party, or at least influences it these days, helps make sure that trash gets identified sooner than later. And I love it. I'm all for it.
I don't know how to report on this, but the guy that was with Doge, he had a nickname. I'm not going to use it, but he had a nickname. The guy with Doge, you know what I'm talking about? And he just stopped. He helped save a woman who was being assaulted in her car in D.C., according to multiple services. Multiple teens surrounded the woman's car, attempted to carjack her. And this young guy with his old nickname, they call him, stepped in. And I guess he got, I don't know what happened, beat up, punched, whatever. But President Trump's threatening to have the federal government take over D.C. I don't know why he's threatening. He should just do it.
Well, he doesn't have authority to do it.
He doesn't? I thought he did. Or is it the speaker?
He doesn't.
Is it the speaker?
No. It's Congress. Right now, a lot of people are unaware of this. The only reason there's a mayor and a city council of Washington, D.C. is because Congress, I think it was in the 1960s, passed a D.C. home rule bill that allows them to have elections and have a city council and a mayor. But the Constitution has originally Congress managing the district. So what used to happen prior to that was that the Government Reform and Oversight Committee was essentially the mayor and city council of D.C. It was that way forever until the 1960s. So that is the natural state of things in our entire 250-year history. Of course, for about 60, 70 years, it's been different. That is probably what needs to be done. I argue for two things that need to happen. I do believe Congress needs to go back running the city. The reason, because this is a test ground for how smart our members of Congress are and how well this city gets run. They need to be held accountable for that. That's their responsibility anyway. But the second thing that needs to happen, I think we need to get rid of this racist Confederate effort that allowed the Confederate States of America to take away Northern Virginia from the 10-mile square of Washington, D.C. Arlington County and Alexandria City, Virginia, rightly should be in the District of Columbia and not in Virginia. The Confederate racist slavers took that away from Washington, D.C., and I think that it needs to be returned to D.C.
Ouch.
I'd do those two things.
Ouch. Ouch. That's all I can say. I'm from Tennessee. I'm from Mississippi. I think where you and I disagree is what Civil War is really all about. And I think it was largely about the fact that the federal government didn't have a right to tell these states they couldn't secede. And some believed it was for slavery, others didn't, but others like Robert E. Lee didn't like the fact the feds were trying to tell North Carolina they couldn't leave. And that's where I come down. I think the states ought to have the right to leave. But there you go.
Well,
we got to. Yeah.
I'm going to jump in because you said we disagree. I'm just going to lay something very clear out here. There is a real question about whether they had a right to leave. That's not the reason for the Civil War. The reason for the Civil War was politicians and slavery. I don't believe that your average Southern person, although there were a lot of them still.
The computer's going to take it away. We'll pick it up the other side. Don't go away.
Okay.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed. All right, welcome back. Worldview 2's Washington Report. Pick it up what you're saying there before I go to the next clip of Trump, Jim.
Sure. Well, we were talking about reasons for the Civil War, and you and I apparently having a disagreement. I do agree that there's a real question about whether states had a right to secede or not. That wasn't the reason for the Civil War. The reason for the Civil War was slaves. And it was politicians, wealthy and influential politicians in the various southern states that did not want to get rid of their slaves. Most of the population of the South neither benefited from nor were harmed by the slave issue because they were doing their own things. Slaveholders were a very small portion of the population. They were the most politically connected and powerful. I think anyone that says that slavery wasn't the issue of the Civil War is absolutely wrong. That said, the states' rights issues suffered greatly because certain people, particularly modern day Democrats, tried to say that if you asserted 10th Amendment issues, then you were pro, slaveholding or, Jim Crow South, which is just a total bunch of bull. So that we're probably closer than you think, but there is a sharp distinction, apparently.
Yeah. Well, here's a great article if folks want to go read it. Foreign Policy Journal. How we know the so-called Civil War was not over slavery. This would have some of my views on it as opposed to Jim. Jim and I, of course, we just disagreed, but that's fine. We're still friends. Blaming the war on slavery was the only way the Northern court historians used morality to cover up Lincoln's naked aggression and the war crimes of his generals. Demonizing the enemy with moral language works for the victor, and it is still going on. We see the destruction of the statues, the determination to shove remaining symbols of a Confederacy down the memory hole. And he goes into a lot of information and some links. This is a great debate to have, actually, because it's one that really is is of great interest to people. We did our documentary on Robert E. Lee, who I'm a big Robert E. Lee fan. And the numbers on people watching that documentary were huge. I did a show with Mike Church, who's a historian out of Louisiana, southern Mississippi. Friends, met him through Colonel Rob Maness. He and I would be on the same side of this argument. That interview with him got huge numbers. So obviously it's something of great interest for people to talk about. So Jim.
I think it's really important to talk about the Lincoln administration and some of the effects that are similar that we see today. I also like to point out the fact that once Andrew Johnson, left the office, that Ulysses Grant did a fantastic job of drawing back in all that power and trying to make it a more constitutional republic again, to his hurt in the 1876 election when he voted or he vetoed a bill to go off the gold standard. And that was the first attempt to fully go off the gold standard. He vetoed it. It did not help in the elections. It was a principled move. There's a whole lot to that, but there's not too much of a direct line from Lincoln's policies to now. But I think there needs to be a very rational discussion about Lincoln's policies, many of which were quite bad. We have a Department of Agriculture right now because of Abraham Lincoln. What do you need a Department of Agriculture for? That's one of them I would eliminate as quickly as I could, because there's no need for it. That's something that states need to deal with. So anyway, it's a great discussion. It's something that needs to be had. I'm a big fan of Thomas Jackson, Stonewall Jackson, for those who don't know, and Robert E. Lee. And I'm a huge fan of Ulysses Grant and Sherman. I mean, there's a lot of great stories there. I am not anti-Southerners. I don't sit around and want to disband the name of Robert E. Lee from history, because even with his faults, just like everybody else's faults, there's a lot of great to be had. And I'm very positive about those men.
Wasn't it Sherman, Logan, that almost got captured on our town square here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Sherman that almost got, look it up. He had a horse named Dolly. Hey, I have a dog named Dolly. I'm going to have to change my dog's name. Sherman had a horse named Dolly, and that was on the train, and it came through Collierville, where we live, right, right now. And there was a battle. It's called the Battle of Collierville, fought on our town square, and people definitely died, dead bodies in the town square, and they almost got Sherman. Did you look it up, Logan? Well, it was Sherman, though, right?
I'm pretty sure it was. By the way,
was Sherman. It was Sherman, he said. Yep.
And in and around that area is where I talk about a redemptive story, is where Ulysses S. Grant began, because of his frustration, a very anti-Semitic approach to Jewish people who are trading, stuff with the U.S. military. And he was very negative on it. And he later made it very clear in his memoirs that it was a disgusting thing on his part. But he was very anti-slavery and married into a slaveholding family, although he didn't personally own slaves. But he, there are so many great stories in the Civil War that say so much about this country and so much of what we could have learned. We unfortunately had courts. By the way, my problem with how government has gone these days is not Abraham Lincoln. I think there are a lot of bad policies there. The problem was the courts. The courts instituted Jim Crow. The courts kept the issue of citizenship and the black community going for a very long time. We were resolving many of these issues for most of the late 19th century. They brought it back up right at the end and the beginning with a few Supreme Court decisions, and then the racism of Woodrow Wilson institutionalized it. So that was really our main problems, and but a lot of great lessons. It's an important story for Americans to know.
Here it is. Around noon, a train containing Major General Sherman arrived from Memphis with the 13th U.S. Infantry, which brought the total number of men fighting in the battle to about 1,280. The 13th U.S. was ordered to the left of the 66th Indiana into the woods. Moving north, Colonel McGurk's command came upon a 40-acre Union cavalry camp on the north side of the town, being our town, Collierville. After routing the 7th Illinois Cavalry into the river bottoms and capturing 150 prisoners and 5 stands of colors, McGurk's men loaded 18 wagons of supplies and destroyed an additional 30 wagons. Because of his delay, Colonel McGurk was unable to attack the fort from the north as planned. The battle raged around the fort and depot, and eventually the Confederates drove all the Union forces into the fort. The depot, a railroad, cuts for protection. Neither side was able to gain control of the battle, fearing reinforcements from Germantown, Tennessee. That's the town right next door to us. The Confederates withdrew without taking the fort. Union losses were 18 dead and 80 wounded or missing. Confederate losses were 51 killed or wounded. Sherman narrowly escaped capture as Confederates boarded his train and captured personal items, including his horse, Dolly. If you go down on our town square, guys, there's all kinds of plaques. You can read all about it right on our town square. And the railroad track's still there. And the trains still come through. A lot of stuff, historical stuff here. Let's see. We got to get another clip in. President Trump was asked about this young man in crime in D.C. Here we go.
By the way, I have to say that somebody from Doge was very badly hurt last night. You saw that. A young man who was beat up by a bunch of thugs in D.C. And either they're going to straighten their act out in the terms of government and in terms of protection, or we're going to have to federalize and run it the way it's supposed to be run. By the way, I have to say...
There you go. Let's see. What else do we got, guys? Anything else we can cover real quick before we go? Oh, let's see here. You got anything, Jim?
I sent something to Logan.
What'd you send to Logan? You sent something? He sent something to you, Logan?
I can't remember what it was.
He says he sent something.
Jim Acosta.
Yeah, run that, Logan.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Jim Acosta?
So just to set this up, Jim Acosta interviewed an AI of one of the kids killed in Parkland.
Really?
His parents had it put together.
Is this it right here, Logan? Yeah. Well, where is it? It's a picture of it, but is there a video?
There's not video in there.
Yeah. He says there's a video.
Yeah, there's a video.
There is a video out there. I just haven't seen it.
Your
so this is all AI.
would be for gun violence.
Great question. I believe in a mix of stronger gun control laws, mental health support, and community engagement. We need to create safe spaces for conversations and connections, making sure everyone feels seen and heard. It's about building a culture of kindness and understanding. What do you think about that?
I think that's a great idea, Joaquin.
So now we got this young man was killed where?
At Parkland, in the Parkland school shooting massacre.
And his dad is the one that created this avatar of him?
Well, worked with it and allowed it. Yeah. I mean, they used he's been dead for a lot of years. And so the fake news is becoming more fake than ever now with Jim Acosta interviewing on obvious AI. I mean, that when you look at that, it's obviously AI. There's more that's going to happen, but this AI stuff's getting pretty good. You got to, pay attention to the fact that there could be a lot of effort on the part of certain people in the media to make fake news seem real through AI. It's absurd.
Yeah, indeed it is. All right, Jim Paff, his website, theconservativecaucus.org, theconservativecaucus.org. Jim, as always, thanks for being with us.
Good to see you, sir.
You too, my friend. And of course, don't forget, we're here, worldviewtube.com, worldviewtube.com, brought to you in part by you. Through your support at worldviewfoundation.com. Worldviewfoundation.com helps us keep pushing out free programming like this that you've come to appreciate and depend upon. So thank you for your support. Worldview Foundation.com. All right. Thanks for watching and thanks for telling your friends. Hey, don't forget you can order a pack of business cards absolutely free, double-sided. Pass them out to your family and friends. Tell them about Worldview Tube. You can get a pack absolutely free at worldviewfoundation.com. Caleb, are you in there? How many of these business cards have we sent out? 20,000 business cards we've sent out free of charge. Get your pack, worldviewfoundation.com. No, worldviewstore.com, sorry. Worldviewstore.com. All right, thanks for doing that, helping spread the word, get out truth. So next time, I'm Brannon Howse. Thanks for watching. May God save America. Take care. Tonight on the Worldview Report, Democrats in the Texas State House flee the state of Texas in an effort to shut down voting on restricting legislation. What's next? The Israeli government has made the decision to occupy the Gaza Strip on a permanent basis. President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, is expected to travel to Russia this week in a last-ditch effort to secure an elusive ceasefire deal. And a new poll finds a large majority of Americans are stressed out about the rising costs of food. All these stories and more as the Worldview Report begins right now.
This is Worldview Report with host Brannon Howse. Whether it is news from the nation's capital or your state capital, from the classroom to the boardroom, from national security to national and local news that impacts you and your family, Worldview Report is your trusted source for vital and uncensored news. And now, here is Brannon Howse.
Good evening and welcome to the Worldview Report. I'm Brannon Howse. We start off tonight with Democrats melting down in Texas. Democrats in the State House of Representatives have fled the state of Texas in a cowardly desertion of their responsibilities. Tonight on Brannon Howse Live, I'll have an exclusive interview with Texas State Senator Bob Hall. The Texas State House, they briefly reconvened on Monday amid a nationally watched clash over the GOP's majority plans to redraw the state's congressional lines, with Republican lawmakers voting to approve the civil arrest warrants that are targeting the dozens of Democrats who fled the state. And this, of course, is blocking Republicans from proceeding with their plan. Here is the Republican House Speaker, Dustin Burrows, announcing the vote to approve arrest warrants.
Being 85 ayes and 6 nays, the motion prevails. The Sergeant-at-Arms and any officers appointed by her are directed to send for all absentees whose attendance is not excused for the purposes of securing and maintaining their attendance under warrant of arrest if necessary until further order of the House.
The bulk of the 50-plus Democrats who left the state, they are in Illinois, where the governor of Illinois, Democrat Governor J.B. Pritzker, welcomed them with open arms. Others, they are in Boston and in Albany, New York. They're with Democratic Governor Kathy Hochul. This, of course, is all in response to Texas pushing for a change in state law to allow for redistricting in the future. Remember, tonight, Senator Bob Hall of Texas exclusively on Brannon Howse. And I can promise you, one of the things he's going to talk about is a legitimate census. Of course, there are many illegals that are being counted and thus giving a wrong proportion to Democrats in the state house. But this also impacts the U.S. House of Representatives. So this is a very important issue that impacts all of us across the country. It's also a federal issue. And we know now that the State Sergeant of Arms and the Texas Department of Public Safety, they have warrants for the arrest of these lawmakers, but that may have little practical effect. Back home, the Democrats, they are facing mounting fines, and the Republican governor, Greg Abbott, he's threatening to boot the state Democratic lawmakers from office or send law enforcement to force them to return to the state. Because House business, well, it requires a quorum. 51 out of the state's 62 Democratic House members, well, they can, by remaining out of state, prevent the Republican-led state House from even moving forward with legislation. Legislation like making it illegal to have Well, drugs, gummy drugs being sold in gas stations that are impacting minors. There's legislation, according to State Senator Bob Hall, pending to stop this, to protect children. And where are the Democrats? They're missing in action. They have fled the state, abandoning their responsibility and protecting minor children from drugs that they can purchase in the form of gummies in gas stations. That's what Senator Bob Hall is going to talk about tonight on Brannon Howse Live. So, those absents, they've deprived the House of their quorum. It's a reality confirmed quickly after legislators, they gavelled in on Monday afternoon, took account. Republican Speaker Dustin Burrows, he admonished those dozens of Democrats who fled the state, saying that they had, quote, abandoned their post and turned their backs on the constituents they swore to represent. They've shirked their responsibilities under the direction and pressure of out-of-state politicians and activists who don't know the first thing about what's right for Texas, end quote. And then he added, quote, leaving the state does not stop this House from doing its work. It only delays it, end quote. Israel's Channel 12, their broadcast, is reporting that the Israeli government has made the decision to occupy the Gaza Strip on a permanent basis. Correspondent Amit Siegel reported on Monday, quote, senior officials in Netanyahu's office made the decision that they're going to occupy Gaza. The top official has been further quoted as saying, quote, if we do not act now, hostages will die of starvation and Gaza will remain under Hamas control, end quote. But the last days, they have seen conflicting reports over the status and future of the ground operation. It's been dubbed, by the way, Gideon's Chariots. What has become clear in the last week is that the negotiations, they are off. Prime Minister Netanyahu ordered an expanded ground incursion in central Gaza. With much of the Strip already decimated and inhabitants facing dwindling food supplies, the big question has remained for Prime Minister Netanyahu. What is next? Hardline politicians in his own cabinet, they've called for the total removal of the Palestinian population after President Trump months ago talked about turning the enclave into a tourist attraction dubbed the Riviera of the Mediterranean. Indeed, a key question remains, will President Trump back a plan of permanent Israeli military occupation? This would certainly open up the likelihood of eventual annexation of the territory. In other news, President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, he is expected to travel to Russia later this week. That's what the president told reporters on Sunday. This is in a bid to secure an exclusive ceasefire deal where people stop getting killed. Witkoff, he'll travel to Moscow either Wednesday or Thursday. That's what President Trump told reporters. Of course, Witkoff, he heads to Russia amid building frustration in the White House with 6 months of diplomacy under Trump having failed to achieve a peace deal or even a ceasefire. To that end, Moscow's invasion of its neighbor, which began in February of 2022 in retaliation for years of shelling of Russian-speaking areas of Ukraine by the Western-backed regime in Kiev. Last month, President Trump issued a 50-day ultimatum to Russian President Vladimir Putin, threatening sanctions and tariffs, including secondary sanctions on top customers for Russian energy exports, like China and India. He threatened this if the Kremlin failed to agree to a ceasefire. Last week, President Trump, he cut the window down to 10 days, citing continued Russian drone and missile strikes on Ukraine. Well, that 10-day deadline is set to expire this Friday. The Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, he told reporters on Monday that Russia will not rule out the possibility of Witkoff visiting Moscow later this week. That's when he added, quote, we are always happy to see Mr. Witkoff in Moscow and are always happy to have contact. We consider these contacts important, meaningful, and very useful, end quote. And then he added, quote, these efforts are very important including in the context of the ongoing process of direct Russian-Ukrainian negotiations. Work is continuing, and we remain committed to the idea that a political and diplomatic solution to the Ukrainian problem is, of course, our preferred option. End quote. The overwhelming majority of American adults are at least somewhat stressed out about the cost of groceries, so says a new poll. This is as prices continue to rise and concerns about the impact of President Trump's tariffs remain widespread. About half of all Americans say the cost of groceries is a major source of stress in their life right now, while 33% say it's a minor source of stress. That's according to the poll from the Associated Press and the NORC Center for Public Affairs Research. Only 14% say it's not a source of stress, underscoring the pervasive anxiety that most Americans continue to feel about the cost of everyday essentials. Other financial stressors, well, they include things like the cost of housing or the amount of money in their bank accounts. Those are also broadly felt, but they weigh more heavily on the younger Americans, who are less likely than older adults to have significant savings or own property. The survey also found that about 4 in 10 Americans under the age of 45 say they've used what are known as buy now, pay later services. That's when spending on entertainment or restaurant meals, or when paying for essentials like groceries or medical care. Natural News is reporting that OpenAI CEO Sam Altman is now taking his controversial iris scanning identity project directly to the financial sector, framing his World ID system as a necessary bulwark against a coming crisis of AI-driven fraud. Speaking at a U.S. Federal Reserve conference on banking regulation on July 22nd, Altman warned that artificial intelligence has already rendered most existing authentication methods obsolete, and the financial industry is dangerously unprepared. Quote, AI has fully defeated most of the ways that people authenticate all of these fancy, take a selfie, wave, or do your voice or whatever, end quote. That's what Altman said. And then he added, quote, I am very nervous that we have a significant impending fraud crisis, end quote. Altman then proposed World ID, a biometric identity platform that verifies users by scanning their irises. And then it stores that data, that verification, using blockchain infrastructure. It's developed by Tools for Humanity. That's a company that Altman co-founded. And the system, well, it has been marketed as a solution to a fundamental problem created by AI itself, telling humans apart from machines, all in a digital world that is increasingly shaped by synthetic media and impersonations. Altman then emphasized in front of central bankers and financial regulators that there's an urgency to adopting these new tools to stem fraud in the global financial systems. Here's what Altman added, quote, a thing that terrifies me is apparently there are some financial institutions that will accept the voice print as authentication. That is a crazy thing to still be doing. Like AI has fully defeated that, end quote. Well, folks, this is a classic Hegelian dialectic process that's at work. Create the problem, wait for the reaction, and then they provide the solution. And the solution in this case, well, it leads to digital slavery for all humanity in an AI-driven tracking system. We'll be right back after this short break.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Welcome back. Hey, would you do me a favor? Would you go to worldviewstore.com and order a pack of business cards absolutely free of charge? They don't cost anything. Would you order them up? They're double-sided. They tell people about Worldview Tube. They invite your family, your friends, even people you meet around town. Maybe you're out to dinner and you find out the waiter or waitress is open to maybe watching a network like Worldview Tube. Give them a card. What do you got to lose, right? Maybe someone you're standing in line with at the grocery store. We have one of our viewers who listens to us in Los Angeles. Gave one not too long ago to a Los Angeles police officer. So spread these cards around. Spread the word about Worldview Tube. You can get a pack of free business cards right now at worldviewstore.com. Thank you for doing that. worldviewstore.com. And remember, we are brought to you by you. So thank you for your support at worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. Thank you for doing that. worldviewfoundation.com. President Trump on Saturday claimed in Washington that India is no longer going to be buying oil from Russia. He stated, quote, "I understand that India is no longer going to be buying oil from Russia. That's what I heard. I don't know if that's right or not. That is a good step. We will see what happens," end quote. Days ago, the U.S. imposed 25% tariffs on Indian goods that are entering the U.S., along with a separate penalty related to the purchase of Russian oil and military hardware. President Trump also warned that countries buying Russian oil, they could face tariffs as high as 100% if Moscow does not agree to a peace deal by August 8th. In a strongly worded post on Truth Social, President Trump, he lashed out at India's trade practices and its reliance on Russian defense and energy sectors, writing, quote, "Also, they have always bought a vast majority of their military equipment from Russia and are Russia's largest buyer of energy, along with China, at a time when everyone wants Russia to stop the killing in Ukraine. All things not good," end quote. How much oil does India buy from Russia? As of 2025, Russia remains India's largest supplier of crude oil, accounting for approximately 35 to 36% of India's total oil imports. Official figures indicate that India imported an average of 1.75 to 1.76 million barrels per day of Russian crude during the first half of 2025 and the entire fiscal year 2024-2025. In May of this year, Russian oil imports peaked at around 1.96 million barrels per day. That's the highest monthly level in nearly a year. President Trump, well, he may have proclaimed a win too soon. You see, India, they've said that they will not conduct trade negotiations at gunpoint. That's what they said. That they will continue to seek out oil contracts that are best for their national interest. Watch this.
The US continues to attack India over oil deal with Russia. Government sources have revealed to your channel that India will not reduce its purchase of Russian oil. Despite this sort of an external pressure, ministry sources are emphasizing that the shift in oil purchase strategies is not intended to please the US, but it is a strategic decision to manage energy needs and costs. Pallavi continues to stay on with us. Pallavi, this is exactly what you were trying to highlight a little while earlier on India's stance that trade negotiations cannot be held at a gunpoint, especially when it comes to moving past the 25% reciprocal tariff, when it comes to the penalty that's been announced by the US on defense and energy imports from Russia. India's not going to really withdraw any of those decisions and strategies, isn't it?
Christine, when we opted for the Russian oil, and the reason, and I remember the minister concerned had also said this in an interview to me, when he said that, we look after our national interests. At that point of time, Russian oil was, of course, working out to be much, much cheaper. There were heavy discounts, and it was also in the backdrop of, the Russia-Ukraine war, and there was a lot of criticism in many quarters that what kind of a stand is India taking? Why should we take oil from Russia? If you remember, S. Jaishankar at an interaction had made the point, and where he had called out the bluff and the hypocrisy of the Western world, saying that in the dead of the night, they are the ones who are purchasing oil from Russia. So we don't need to get sermons from the world on why we are going in for Russian oil. The point is, at the end of the day, who matters? Who matters really to the government is the people, the consumers. The consumers are king. And Russian oil, with its heavy discount, was considered to be the best alternative available. It also ensured that the oil prices were not staggering up high like in many other countries. But now the discounts start petering out. So now you start looking at other options. That's what we've been told. Oil companies will always look for a better price. They'll always look for better bargains. So to suggest, as some seem to be suggesting, that we are opting out of Russian oil and stopping our supply from there, one, is factually incorrect, and second, it seems to suggest that we are buckling under American pressure. But if you're talking about national interest, you're not going to buckle on any other pressure. But yes, we've looked for alternatives, whether it's South Africa, whether it's Western Africa, Cambodia, other countries as well, and of course the Middle East.
It also is pertinent to note that Russian oil has never been sanctioned, and it is still not sanctioned by either the US or the EU. We have more evidence tonight that America's obesity epidemic starts in the high chair, with big food corporations getting infants addicted to ultra-processed food. Natural News reports that researchers from the University of Leeds have exposed a disturbing trend. Ultra-processed baby foods, well, they're laden with sugar and additives and are setting children up for a lifetime of obesity and chronic disease. In a report originally published in April, researchers at the institution revealed that nearly 1/3 of the 632 ready-made baby and toddler products that they analyzed are ultra-processed. Among the products they examined were cereals, snack bars, and fruit pouches. Many of these contain shockingly high levels of sugar, with some deriving as much as 89% of their calories from sugar. Major brands such as Ella's Kitchen and Heinz, well, they dominate the market with low nutrition snacks, while many say misleading marketing practices that hoodwink parents into believing that these products are healthy. Childhood obesity rates on the rise, and tooth decay, now the leading cause of hospital admissions for young children. Well, experts are calling for urgent government intervention. Ultra-processed foods, known as UPFs, they are, well, industrial creations that are heavily laden with artificial additives, preservatives, and of course, refined sugars. Unlike whole foods, UPFs, they undergo extensive mechanical and chemical alterations, which of course strip away essential nutrients while enhancing additives and colorings, flavors. Parents, well, they're being misled, according to experts, by cleverly packaged products that tout no added sugar. But in reality, they're hiding excessive natural sugars, like fruit-based sugars. Though technically not UPFs, still, they flood the young bodies with released sugars. While these released sugars occur naturally, they are rapidly absorbed by children's bodies and potentially fueling sweet cravings very early in life. In fact, nutritionists, they argue that the food industry exploits parental trust by branding nutritionally void products as essential for growth. Well, now it's time for our nightly Worldview Report commentary. LifeSite News reports that New Hampshire Governor Kelly Ayotte signed into law 2 bills on Friday banning gender transition surgeries for minor children. With her signature on Friday, New Hampshire has become the first New England state to outlaw transgender mutilation for children and teens. Well, that's significant, folks, because it shows that the trend of backing off the insane transgender obsession is gaining steam across America, and not just in conservative states. The governor, in a statement, said, quote, medical decisions made at a young age can carry lifelong consequences. And these bills represent a balanced, bipartisan effort to protect children, end quote. When it comes to protecting children, there should be no balance, right? We should be all in for the good of our children. But that deft-tone statement notwithstanding, well, it's good to see a little bit of common sense in that state. Of course, that state has been destroying children's lives for years, but now apparently they're going to reverse course. We shall see. While most Democrats and LGBTQ plus activists, well, they decried the measures. In fact, recent polling showed that the Granite State, their voters, overwhelmingly support the legislation. In fact, a July 2025 New Hampshire Journal poll found that New Hampshire voters are indeed in favor of the bans by a margin of 69 to 16%. The first bill, it's HB 377, and it bans puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones for those under the age of 18. Regrettably, the legislation does not prohibit transgender drugs for minors who have already begun using them as of January 1st, 2026. The second bill, BH 712, it limits breast surgeries for minors to, quote, only those procedures needed to treat malignancy, injury, infection, and malformation, and those needed to reconstruct the breast after such procedures, end quote. It also bans other surgeries, including hysterectomies, all as part of a gender transition. New Hampshire, they outlawed transgender genital surgery last year. So, as some states like California continue down the road of sexual perversion and, of course, exploitation of children, it's finally good tonight to be able to report that some red states are not following California's lead. Apparently, some percentage of sanity has returned to New Hampshire. And I pray that other states in the Northeast follow their lead. Well, that does it for this edition of the Worldview Report. As always, we thank you for tuning in and supporting the broadcast and all the free programs that we push out as public service, education, and ministry programming to help people understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. If you'd like to be a part of our team that keeps all this coming to you free of charge, and many people around the world, you can do that by simply going to worldviewfoundation.com and becoming a team member with us now. Worldviewfoundation.com. We are a listener-supported network, and we need your support. And we really could use it now. It's summer. And during the summer, a lot of people get busy and they forget. A lot of times giving in the summer goes down. But our bills, they just keep coming in. That's right. We got a bill coming in now, $10,000. We have to pay $10,000 a year just to license all this different B-roll footage you see us use. Yeah, because we're a commercial network, right? They require it. It's copyright. It's federal copyright. We have no choice. Every year we got to pay that. That's one of many such bills we have to pay each and every year. Licenses, all kinds of software license. You just can't believe it. Not to mention the bandwidth bill, right? The IT bills. It costs a lot, folks, to keep free TV going. So we need your support. Please consider going now. Worldviewfoundation.com. Worldviewfoundation.com. So next time, I'm Brannon Howse. May God save America. Take care.
woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever, you know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed.
I'll tell you one little quick story. We had a Worldview weekend client who lived in California, lost their house. Very wealthy guy. He didn't use Bitcoin. He came over here, drove to Arizona with $286,000 worth of his gold because he had no money and no house available. His bank was shut down because he couldn't have access to his bank account.
Was this during the fire? Was this during the fires?
During the fire. Didn't have his driver's license. He lost it. The state wouldn't give him a new license because he had no active mailing address. Real mess. So he came to Arizona to buy a house. He's moving everything over. He said, the only thing I got in my possession that I can get liquid with right now is my gold. I gave him a check for $286,000, and guess what? I didn't need his social, his driver's license. Sort of smiled, and I said, you know, I know you and Brannon talked about how this worked, but boy, this is great. I feel good. I got my money. Nobody bothered me, and I'm protected, and it's private. So you people out there who are sitting on your hands when Wes and I are sending you these requests and Brannon and you are talking to you, you better get active because you're going to pay me $4,000 an ounce the end of the year. Trust me.
You better get your. I highly suggest you get your free packet. You don't have to do anything. It's free, no obligation. Just simply go to worldviewgold.com, fill out the form, worldviewgold.com, or just text Wes and give him your name and address and say, I want the free packet. That's all you got to do. 602-558-8585, 602-558-8585.
This is Brannon Howse Live. Whether the issue is law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, government, or national security, Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
And good evening. Welcome to the broadcast. Glad you are with us here on this August 5th, 2025. Joining me tonight is going to be Senator Bob Hall of Texas. There's a lot going on in Texas, folks. Yeah, I guess the governor has filed something at the state Supreme Court to kick these people out. The Attorney General, Ken Paxton, who we've interviewed here several times and in person, I guess he's saying these guys have vacated their offices. They're going to replace them. I don't know. They've all fled to mostly Illinois. We're going to talk to Senator Bob Hall about that. What is it that they're holding up in Texas? Well, they're holding up many things, including some very important pieces of legislation that impact children. I thought the Democrats were all about the children, right? Then we're going to talk about not only what's going on in Texas, because it impacts every one of you, because it will determine how many members of the House of Representatives there are. And we know there's a very thin margin there, right? So this thing in Texas and redistricting and trying to get the voter rolls clean, who's really a citizen versus the illegals, which again, population determines representation. They got to get all these people that are not supposed to be on the rolls, all the illegals off, not being counted. And the Democrats don't want that because, of course, the Democrats, by and large, are not for the rule of law. They're for rigging things. I mean, that's how they win elections, isn't it? Rigging elections. So we're going to talk to Senator Bob Hall about that. And then we're going to talk to, think about that. How is it the Democrats win? In my opinion, this is my opinion, you can disagree. My opinion is they mostly can't win unless they cheat, particularly when they're in competitive states, and districts. Very interesting, isn't it? But they claim that the Republicans are the ones gerrymandering. But reality is, who's doing it? It's a psychological projection. Put onto your opponent what you're actually doing. I think the Republicans are trying to clean it up and say only people being counted who actually live here, belong here, and are legal, not illegals. And we'll get to the bottom of that. Then I want to talk to you about AI. Look at this here, guys. China's AI teachers now handle 80% of daily school tasks. Yeah. I'm going to play some video clips, news clips. Schools are going increasingly to AI to give customized teaching to students. I wrote a book in 1995 where I had a whole chapter on this and talked about how since the 1960s, there's been and I'll show you the proof tonight, a goal to use computers to have personalized brainwashing for students. And what we're talking about here is merging the philosophies and ideas and worldview of Benjamin Bloom, I'll tell you who that is, with that of behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner, reinforcing the right attitudes on a proper and timely schedule. Brainwashing. And they've been talking about it openly, using computers to do this since the early 1960s. They had no concept or idea of AI, artificial intelligence. This is going to be a game changer for the power elite, the educrats, the globalists, the brainwashers. This is going to be a game changer. I'm going to bring you some detailed information, okay? And then I'm going to have on Dr. James Thorpe talk about this article. Nurse blows the whistle on cover-up of 5,000% surge in fetal death caused by COVID vaccines. All right, we're going to get to all that tonight. But remember, before we do, we're brought to you by you. One of the things I do each and every day is I take Bella Grace at melissahousebg.com. A powerful elixir, 80 clinical trials behind it. That's all there is to it. 80 clinical trials behind this. Collagen, high-end collagen. Peptides cut short so your body actually absorbs it. Astaxanthin that crosses the brain-blood barrier, takes on free radicals. And then cat's claw, that's an anti-inflammatory. My stomach lining, your stomach lining is collagen. Did you know that? Apparently I had a leaky gut. When you have a leaky gut, you have a lot of problems, including with your immune system. And sometimes it shows up in your hands cracking and bleeding, maybe psoriasis in your hair or on your head, other parts of your body, right? Well, mine was showing up with cracking and bleeding hands for years. But then about, I'd say 2-3 weeks of being on Bella Grace, it all cleaned up. I've been taking Bella Grace since December of 2023. My hands are clean. They don't crack. They don't bleed. Apparently that leaky gut healed up. Yeah, I've had a lot of advantages. Haven't taken a Pepcid since December of 2023. My acid reflux, gone. I could go on and on about Bella Grace. And many of you go on in your emails and testimonials to us. It's a real product with 80 clinical trials behind it. It's not just the elixir. It's also the skincare, the sleep, restorative sleep gummies. It's all there. melissahousebg.com, melissahousebg.com. The other thing I do is I swish with Numi. I actually now have gotten where I put this in my bathroom on my counter. And when I shave or put on my tie, do my hair, I swish with this. I swish it with this at least twice a day, but I'm trying to do about 4 times a day. Sometimes more if I feel like I'm getting sick. But I'm trying to do about 4 times a day because this is filled with what's called glutathione to detox your cells. And studies show it can remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. Highly believe in that. I do that every day. I do Bella Grace every day. And then I do my Gatatana. That's at Melissa House GPA. And Gatatana, that's a phytoplankton. And it feeds your cells down to the mitochondria and helps to boost your immune system, keeping you in good health at the cellular level so your own immune system can fight off bad things. One way we know this is because the man that developed it, remember him? He had a terminal diagnosis. They gave him a very short period of time to live. He was raising this phytoplankton for his shellfish, started eating it. He went in for 11 biopsies. They all came back benign. You only got a little bit of time to live, turned out to being 10 years, retired to Hawaii. From this, Dave Hunter started Global Plankton Alliance. There's 5 clinical trials behind this. I drink this every day. You see me drink it on the air. I give half a scoop to Dolly. There is a Gatatana for pets. If you go to Melissa Howse GPA, let me type that in, you'll see that. Now, I did not know this. My wife told me that the pet product's $20 cheaper. So I've been giving my dog Dolly some of my Gatatana, but my wife said, if we get the pet, it's $20 cheaper. Let's give her, don't give her yours, give her her own. So she now gets this every morning, the pet product. She was getting it every morning, but mine, now she has her own. So I give this to my beloved Dolly. There's that cat with the tumor in the eye, got it on the Gatatana, I should say, tumor gone. Okay? Check it all out, melissahousegpa.com, melissahousegpa.com. These are real products. I highly believe in them. It's not a joke. It really is important. All right? And we need your support. So please check it all out. If you want, in fact, you want to support us and find out where all the different companies we work with are, and they pay us when you do business with them. So please do business with them. These are great products. I use, I endorse. Melissa uses, Melissa endorses. They're all there. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Joining me now is Senator Bob Hall of Texas. He's a regular here. We got 2 big stories, of course. The Texas Democrats have fled to Illinois. We'll play a video clip there with the governor of Illinois. And then, we've talked about RFK Jr. and the drugstore drugs, gas station drugs. Looks like candy. RFK Jr. has been talking about that. Well, Senator Bob Hall, he's on that, trying to fix it for his state of Texas. Maybe it's a model that you could use for your state, because this is certainly a big problem. Our kids getting these gas station drugs. He joins us now. Senator, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me. Glad to be back again and talk about a couple of really hot subjects here in the hot Texas.
Oh, man. This one on the Texas Democrats running up to Illinois. This is a big story. It is everywhere. Here we have a little video of the governor of Illinois with some of your Texas Democrats. Let's hear what he has to say. Well, first, maybe explain to our audience, maybe who don't know, then we'll go to the clip. Why did they flee to Illinois? Is there a arrest warrant out for them? And if so, why? What are they doing?
Well, yeah, your questions there. The why did they leave? It's their way of trying to prevent a bill from being passed. By their leaving, Texas has a requirement that you have to have a quorum in order to bring a bill to the floor. And so while they don't have enough votes to stop a bill once it gets on the floor in either the House or the Senate, the only way they can stop a bill is to not allow a quorum to be established. So by leaving the state, because if they stay in the state, by not showing up, it's an arrestable offense. And earlier this morning, the governor had issue orders to DPS to arrest the Democrats. Of course, they had climbed on the plane and left by then. Some left the state on their own. But understand now, it's my understanding he has now extended that and called the Rangers in to investigate them for bribery for what they're taking to leave the state. But it's by not being here, it means the legislature, which we've been called back into a special session to vote on the issue of redistricting and a number of other things, including the what we need to do as a state to shore up our emergency capability to handle weather threats. And like we experienced recently down in the Uvalde area. So, they've walked out on the state on things that we desperately very much need to have happen. That and the bringing an end to the the widespread sale of very bad drugs in the Texas called THC.
And that's the drugstore candy as well, right?
That is correct. That is the candy, the gummies that have been specifically packaged to target children.
Yeah, we dealt with that last week, and it's horrific. I found out about it last summer. I should have been screaming about it then, but I didn't know enough about it. And with all that's going on in the news cycle, it got put on the back burner. And then when RFK Jr. brought it up and we had more detailed information as to what was going on with that, we really started covering this and hope that people will do what your state's doing. Is there legislation that people could look at to take to their state senators, their state reps to model what you're doing?
Oh, absolutely. Senate Bill 5, SB 5, in the 88th first special session. Just go to the Texas government website, and it's SB 5 in the first special session.
Are you making it illegal to have this in gas stations?
Yes, yeah. We're going to ban it.
Good.
You see, actually, what's happening here in Texas is illegal. It is in violation of federal law. The problem is the feds have not funded law enforcement of these drugs, and therefore DEA and other federal agents are not doing anything about it. So we've been allowing these things to be sold in violation of federal law. But what has happened is these synthetics, Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10, had kind of crept into the market. They kind of fall in between the regulatory process, and they turn out to be far worse than any of the other drugs like marijuana, alcohol, marijuana that we know about. They have an incredibly long-lasting effect and are particularly damaging to young people. And unfortunately, the market, which is a really strange market and huge, I'll tell you, to give you an idea of how big this market has become, in the big state of Texas, we only have about 1,300 McDonald's spread all over us at 1,300. You think you see one on every corner? You think that's a lot of them? Well, the dispensers for selling THC are 8,000. 8,000 outlets, most of which have been placed right next to school districts to sell to kids. And the testimony we had from parents of what happened to their young 10, 11, 12, 15-year-old after one or two gummies is absolutely heartbreaking.
Like what? Tell me.
It creates a psychosis that they can become paranoid. And you have this vivacious, outgoing, talking child that all of a sudden will not leave their bedroom, will not talk to anybody, and will hardly look you in the eye. And it lasts a long time. Some believe that some of this is going to be permanent for some of these kids.
And one or two gummies is all it took.
That's all it takes.
Sold in a gas station.
Right. So
So where's the criminal? Where's the criminal? Where's the civil lawsuits against these gas stations?
Well, those haven't materialized, and with Texas tort laws being the way they are, they would probably be very difficult and very expensive to process. But the other thing we've discovered from a raid that was made on a particular area is that these products are not even being manufactured in Texas. Not many of them aren't even being manufactured in the U.S. And most of them are being sold for cash, or they have to be sold for cash because it would not be legal to actually deposit that money into a bank account because they're breaking federal law. And so what we're finding is that millions, hundreds of millions of dollars are being sent to the Middle East, which we're finding is one of the major sources of these gummies.
What country, can you say?
The Middle East is what I know. I don't know don't know the specifics of it, but here's the problem. Here's what's happening is that the opposition to this, which is well funded, has raised it and has as the tip of their spear veterans. saying that veterans need these because of their mild PTSD or PTSD, and that we will be damaging and hurting veterans.
Well, wait a minute, right there. Rick Perry, do you know that your former governor spoke at the Psychedelic Science 2025 conference recently in Denver?
No, I don't. I did not know that.
Rick Perry spoke on this very issue at the Psychedelic Sciences Conference 2025 in Denver. One of our broadcast partners was there. We've had him on. You can find it online. You can find a video. He was saying, people were telling me not to do this. You're going to ruin your career and if you go do this. But he so believes in what you're talking about for the veterans. And at this conference, they were talking about using psychedelics to encounter other entities. I mean, it is nuts, okay? And there was Rick Perry. Well, that's really odd because in 2011, Rick Perry was wanting everybody to get together at Reliant Stadium for what he called response and ask God for help. And now he's running off to Psychedelics 2025 conference in Denver, where we have the screenshots and showed them, where there are people there making presentations on psychedelics for exploring other worlds and entities. I mean, what on earth has happened to Rick Perry? But your own former governor seems to be in favor of this to help veterans. I don't know. I don't want to put you in the spot, but Rick Perry to me always seemed a little cuckoo.
Well, the issue for veterans is one that is being used as a battering ram, and we have a program. We started it a couple of sessions back and just expanded it. It's called TCUP, Texas Compassionate Use Program. This is a program that because of federal law, we have to handle it special, and it is kind of expensive. But any veteran that gets a prescription from a doctor can participate in the TCUP program and get these gummies. It's set up, it'll actually be delivered to their door. And if they have a prescription, they can get it. So we've recognized that there are some veterans that this might be helping, or at least they feel like that it is helping them. And so we said, okay, well, we'll allow that to happen. Very controlled, very regulated, very limited in scope. We've expanded it. Now, Texas is a big state, so we've added authorized locations to be able to handle these drugs. So those veterans that have a legitimate need can get them. What we're not going to have are those that are sitting on the shelf that either a child walking home from school can stop and grab a bag of them, or someone who wants to stop by and get a bag of them and take them down to the VFW and drink a few beers and pop some gummies. That needs to go away.
Well, you're telling me people are having psychotic episodes after these things that may never heal. So again,
yes.
I mean, it sounds to me, Senator, this sounds like organized crime. If they know they're violating federal law and they're doing it in cash to stop the tracking, and it's coming out of the Middle East, this sounds like an international conspiracy, international drug running, and it makes me wonder if some of our Islamic folks haven't sent this into our country on purpose, just like China sends fentanyl in here.
Yeah, I believe that from what I know or been told about where things are coming from and where the money is going, Texans are not benefiting from this. This is not, well, we got an industry out there that we will damage our economy, because most of the money, the profit out of this is going out of the country, back to the Islamic states. And yeah, you got shopkeepers, but out of the 8,000, there are only about 2,000 of them that rely on these gummies as their only product. The rest of them, they just sell it as a part of a whole bunch of other stuff. And so, yeah, they'll have a couple empty shelves for a while till they find something to put in it. And so the impact to our economy is not going to be that big, but the need to end this with the prohibition on it, a ban, and that's the fight we've got. There are those who want to try to regulate it. We listen to the police. A great deal of testimony from law enforcement that basically says you cannot regulate this. We don't have the manpower, we don't have the tools, and it'd be very, very expensive. So one of the things I said in one of the hearings is you got two ways to do this. You can regulate it or you can ban it. Regulating it is very expensive and will have very low effectivity.
Yes.
Banning it will be at least significantly less costly and be far more effective.
Absolutely.
So it's a no-brainer.
It is a no-brainer. And this sounds to me like a real attack, a national security issue. This to me is also a national security issue when you have this coming in from the Middle East and kids having, manic meltdowns or psychotic episodes that take forever to cure, if ever they can be. I mean, are you telling me that the whole use of these for veterans is being used to try to stop the good legislation?
Yes, that's exactly what's happened. Is you've got the folks who are making the money off of it have placed the veterans at the tip of the spear and are using them and have riled up the folks out there. Now there are a number of other people, not just veterans, but that do get the gummies and say, I need this for my Parkinson, I need this for whatever it is they have. Well, we've got the teacup program. They just need to get on board with it. We're trying to reduce the cost of teacup because it is more expensive than going out to your local gas station and getting a bag of gummies.
Well, it needs to be, yeah. Well,
trying to get that down. But we also need to get it only in the hands of those who have a legitimate need for it. Because this issue, that the reason this problem with kids and others is, unlike alcohol, which you can drink alcohol, you can drink too much of it and make you sick, but it's water soluble and it will eventually leave your system. You finally get rid of it. It's gone. It's out of there. These gummies are not like that.
That's right.
They have a lasting impact, and depending on your DNA, these things will attach themselves to every organ in your body. And they are there for a very long time. And in some cases, I'm told they're permanent.
Gosh.
And that's why you have some of these problems. These are not water soluble, do not flush out of your system, and they hang there with you. But people that are doing this don't understand that and don't recognize it. And so those that want to regulate it don't understand this. Every group that I have talked to that started out with the question, what are you guys doing down there in Austin going to get rid of our gummies? Do it and ban them. How about you just regulate them so those of us that need them want them? Well, I explained to them what I've just told you about the impact and the cost to the taxpayer of doing this. And at the end of the meeting, I kept all kinds of people coming. Well, I'm sure glad to hear you say that, Bob, because it was all for regulating this until I understood what the problem really is. And now I agree with you. We need to ban it.
Is there any other state doing this other than Texas, banning them?
I'm not sure what other states have allowed. See, we got here because we have the issue. The federal government is not doing its job because what's being sold in Texas today is illegal from a federal standpoint. Federal drug, it violates that. But as we started talking to the DEA folks, it says we can't do anything about it because we've been specifically told we can't spend money going after these drugs.
So with the bill number again, if people want to go look it up on the Texas government website to get a state rep or senator in their state to model this ban bill, what is it?
SB 5, Senate Bill 5, SB 5.
Okay. Now, is this one of the bills that's being held up due to the Democrats running to Illinois?
Yes, and all the bills we've got.
Okay,
the bills we have for emergency.
The Dems that cry about the children. Wasn't it the former Surgeon General that always talked during the Clinton administration? She always talked about the children. So now they have run to Illinois and literally they're putting children in harm's way because they're not doing what is the first and foremost responsibility of government, security and protection. They're not protecting the children. The Democrats have run to Illinois over politics, over rezoning, and they're neglecting the children that are getting a hold of drugs that in some cases are going to and have damaged their brains permanently. That's your Texas Democrats, right?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, let's go to the governor of Illinois. I guess he's giving them safe harbor up there. Listen to this. Here we go.
So Trump came up with a new scheme, rig the system by ramming through a corrupt mid-decade redistricting plan that would steal 5 congressional seats, silencing millions of voices, especially Black and Latino voters. let's be clear, this is not just rigging the system in Texas. It's about rigging the system against the rights of all Americans for years to come. Now, Texas Republicans submitted to the president's orders and took steps to advance Trump's Texas takeover. And while Texas Democrats have been trying to work across the aisle to deliver disaster relief after the devastating floods in central Texas, Republicans chose to use the tragedy as political cover to cheat. That brings us to today. Texas Democrats were left no choice but to leave their home state, block a vote from taking place, and protect their constituents. This is a righteous act of courage, and we can all take a page from these leaders' playbook. When you show people that you have the will to fight, well, they can muster the will to fight too. That's right. Courage is contagious.
How many lies did you count there?
Oh, I ran out of fingers and toes on that, and the hypocrisy of that governor, because Illinois did exactly the same thing for the Democrats. They did exactly the same thing across the middle part of Illinois, redistricting to take them out. And their argument, see, those Democrats have been arguing since 2023 that the maps were wrong. They were wrong. They had to be redone. They were wrong. They're in court. They've been arguing this. And now all of a sudden, these maps are perfect. We can't touch them. And their argument is, the other part of it is, they will argue against, you can't do anything that discriminates. You can't discriminate based on race, religion, et cetera. And we all agree with that. But now they're asking for a redistricting drawing that discriminates. They're asking for districts that are carved out for black and brown. That's what they're asking for. So they're asking us now to discriminate, which with political parties, there is no distinction between black, white, yellow, brown, any race or religion. You're an American. You get to choose political philosophy. Redistricting is based on political philosophy. It's legal, and it is a common practice that has been around forever in lines, because there is no litmus test for either party. It's just political philosophy. It has nothing to do with race.
Let's go to the Texas rezoning map. Let me see if I can find a map of the rezoning. Are they running it along interstates, or are they currently are now? Tell me what has brought this whole rezoning thing up.
It's based on population. It really ignores municipalities, lines of that nature, and it's according to federal law that gives us strict instructions on having the size based on population just about almost exactly equal. For each of the congressional districts, and we have 38 of them here in Texas.
So there's no rigging. You're going strictly on population, right?
That's right. It was going on population in there, and the lines are being drawn, and they have always crossed multiple counties. Some cities get split, some counties get split. It just depends on what you have to do in order to get the population balanced. And
is that it? Is that the map?
That kind of looks like it, and you can see those don't match up with any counties. There are multiple counties within those, and you see that one district, which I'm not sure which one that is. It stretches up. There's just below the number 3. That thing stretches across maybe 15 counties, a little piece of them, and through the city of the county of Dallas included.
So are you telling me that's the current map? So basically, it looks like they're running it along the interstate or whatever they got to do to get.
They there are no geographic boundaries that are part of the process of determining it. Now, it may happen that a highway might fall in the right place, but the boundaries are really determined by drawing the lines around population.
Okay, so this is the new map, not the old map. This is the new map. Is this the map being proposed, or this is the old map, the current map?
I'm not sure that because there's so much of it hasn't all changed.
They say this is Texas's proposal. They say this is the proposed new congressional map. I guess what I'm trying to get to is, in the past, Democrats would take zoning and run down interstates and have it curve it and carry it on to try to get their group of people they're wanting in that district and make it long and weird and weaving, following the interstate. And I guess the idea would be that, you've got a certain economic group of people up against that interstate where most people don't want to live up by an interstate like that. So they pick interstate or whatever you got to do to follow that line to get the people they want in there that they know will vote for them and thus have representation in their legislature or also the House in D.C. That's what they've been doing.
I've heard that's a practice that has bothered some people doing that.
So you guys now are only going in and redoing this because of the growth of population in your state?
The exact reason, I was originally told that, I know back when we had the original census data. See, redistricting is based on federal government census. And we had a great deal of concern back when we redid it because we didn't have any choice but to accept it. But we knew the Biden administration was incorporating everybody, illegal aliens in there. They didn't matter whether they were citizens or whatever it is.
Right.
They stuffed everybody they could in there. I was initially told, and I don't know whether this followed through or not, but we were sent new census data that supposedly was corrected, and that was the reason for making the changes.
And that, of course, then means you're getting all the illegals out of there. You're not counting them. And now you have real representation. And the Democrats, who we all know are a bunch of lawless individuals by and large, are screaming and hollering that you're actually following the law.
Yes. Yes.
And they're running Illinois instead of protecting the children who are getting a hold of drugs that in some cases are destroying their brains.
Right. Yep. And the Democrats in states like Illinois and others, where they're in control of drawing the maps. And this issue has gone through the courts. This is legal according to the courts. We can't discriminate based on race or religion, but the issue of political affiliation is wide open. And other states have carefully drawn their maps to maximize their Democrat representation in Washington and minimize their Republican representation.
All right. So where do you see this going? When these Democrats get back to Texas, are they going to be? And by the way, this impacts everybody watching tonight because this also impacts how many members of Congress there are for the Republican Party or the GOP versus the Democrats, which we know there's a very close margin. So everybody watching tonight's impacted by this, right, Senator?
Oh yeah, no. This makes an impact at the national level, and we do know that other states are watching to see what we do. And others are looking to do, I mean, both states, whether it's Democrat or Republican led, there are many other states that are looking at, well, maybe we could do the same thing. So you're going to see the same thing happen in Democrat states as Republican states.
So like in Tennessee here, if we have, and I'm outside of Memphis, if we have Memphis is not drawn right, or not, the census hasn't been done right, and we're counting too many illegals in there, and they go in and they get a real count, Democrats could lose a congressional seat out of Western Tennessee.
Yes, sir. And I hate to do this. I've got a call from the governor.
No, you better take that. Take it. Senator Bob Hall, his website, senatorBobHall.com. SenatorBobHall.com. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you. There you go. See, I tell you, we got a guy on the line there that's right on the cutting edge, as you heard. And now he's getting a call from the governor. So there you go. All right, SenatorBobHall.com. And we'll be right back after this break. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. Melissa and I have been taking Bella Grace, this powerful elixir, since last fall, 2023. The results have been amazing. My hands would crack and bleed, deep cuts and cracks every winter for years. No matter what we did, we couldn't get them to stop cracking and bleeding. This year, I took Bella Grace, no cracking, no bleeding. My acid reflux, gone. Haven't had to take a Pepsid. My hair growth, the last 2 times I had my hair cut, the lady had to Use thinning shears on my hair. That's amazing. We've also received incredible feedback from you, our listening audience, and the impact it's had for you. This is loaded with astaxanthin. That's a powerful antioxidant. Collagen, but top grade collagen. Studies show 95% of it is being absorbed in the body because of the way they develop it. Then we have something called cat's claw. That's an anti-inflammatory from a vine in Peru. It's the bark, and it's an anti-inflammatory. There are about 80 clinical trials on Bella Grace. Please get a subscription now and save. MelissaHouseBG.com. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. Would you like to gain access to over 20 years of my radio shows, TV shows, my books? I've written 15 books, and most of those books are ebooks now. And we have conference DVDs, conferences where we filmed our conferences at the Ozarks, literally starting 20 years ago. It's all available in our archived vault. All you have to do is go to worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and for a reasonable monthly fee, you gain access to over 20 years of Christian worldview programming, news, information, books, documentaries, and a powerful search engine. And folks, it's a great way not only to educate yourself, equip yourself, but it's a big way that you can help fund our continuation as a broadcast network. Please check it out. worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and help us continue pushing out a Christian worldview. All right, guys, I wrote a book in 1993, my second book in 93 on education, my third book, 1995 on education. And I had a whole chapter in my 1995 book on how computers will be used to brainwash people, brainwash children particularly, by reinforcing the correct values on a timely schedule. Really what we're talking about here is Bloom's taxonomy, outcome-based education. Many of you remember that saying, right? It's now referred to often as No Child Left Behind, Race to the Top, Common Core, right? You guys know those names. It doesn't really matter, Republican, Democrat. The education plan has continued. It really comes from the United Nations, and America is just doing a UN version of this global international plan. This is all documented in my books. This is not conspiracy. And in the book in 1995, Reclaiming a Nation at Risk, I talked about computers and how powerful they will be used for reinforcing the right attitudes, values, feelings, and beliefs on a timely schedule. Again, that's Bloom's taxonomy, but it's also B.F. Skinner, the behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner, who talked about being able to make, animals high achievers if reinforced on a proper and timely schedule. Now, imagine if you take that, folks, and you combine it with artificial intelligence that has been pre-programmed as to the desired attitudes, values, feelings, and emotions. This takes us to a whole new level from what I was writing about in 1995. I want to share some of this with you tonight because I think we're one of the only radio shows or TV shows in the country and perhaps the world that has been doing this worldview study and analysis as long as I have been doing this, 35 years, started in 1990. And we're one of the few radio and TV shows that can take the whole issue of worldview, education, technology, Bloom's taxonomy, B.F. Skinner, and bring it to bear today on artificial intelligence. Before I show you some quotes by B.F. Skinner and Benjamin Bloom, I want you to watch this. Listen to this News 10, late News 10 update. I got a couple clips I want to show you. Then I'm going to take you to the quotes by B.F. Skinner and Benjamin Bloom and show you how AI is going to allow them to, the globalists, the elitists, the educrats, to accomplish their objectives that they've been talking about when it comes to using computers, at least since the 1960s. So watch this first clip, and then I'm going to show you some quotes by B.F. Skinner, Benjamin Bloom, and others, and show you that they've really been talking about using computers for brainwashing in our schools, at least since the 1960s. Here's the first clip.
A school in Texas is turning heads with its bold approach to education. At Alpha School, students spend 2 hours a day learning with AI teachers. The artificial intelligence adapts its lessons to each student, providing one-on-one personalised education.
Boom! Hold right there. Did you hear what she said? What did she say? What's the 2 words? The key words. Did you catch it? Listen again.
Adapts its lessons to each student, providing one-on-one personalised education.
Personalized education. Let me play the rest of the clip, because that's exactly what I predicted in my book in 1995. Here we go.
So what happens after those 2 hours are done? Well, the rest of the day is all about real-world skills, from tying shoelaces to learning how to swim and solving 100-piece puzzles.
Okay. Do these kids not have children? Children not have parents to teach them how to tie their shoes and swim? Real-world experience. I guess this is growing. Listen.
And the results are surprising. Students are scoring in the top 1 to 2% nationally with...
Whoa. In the top 1 to 2% nationally. On what? That's a key question. On what? 1 to 2% on what standard? Math? Reading? Writing? History? Or achieving desired attitudes, values, feelings, and beliefs? That's the question.
Results so strong, the model is expanding to states including Florida, California, and New York.
Yeah, of course it is. Now, here's another clip. This is, I think, from New Zealand. Listen to this.
What I have said to NZQA, who's our qualifications authority, have said to them, by 2028, when we roll this in, I want you to be in a position where every single assessment, internal, external, is marked by you externally. Take that load off teachers. It's one of the single biggest time sucks for them.
Yeah. How will NZQA do it? You need to beef them up.
AI, my friend. They're already doing it. And I'll tell you something. We are one of the world leaders. People don't know this. Even I didn't know this. What we do with our digital assessments, with our literacy and numeracy co-requisite, and so it's mostly digital, and then it's AI marked, most of it.
Okay, digital assessments. Are you paying attention? Digital assessments. What are they assessing? What are they assessing? Historical facts the students know? Vocabulary tests? Math? Reading comprehension? Science? What are they assessing? But they're doing it digitally, so it can be tailored to each individual, so they can get to each individual child's area of weakness or deficiency. But what are we testing again? Cognitive? Academic? Or affective objectives? Attitudes, values, feelings, and beliefs. Listen to more.
Means we can do it quickly.
Wow.
And it's world leading. You know, people in other countries say to me, the ministers, we could only dream of that.
Yeah.
We're so far advanced. For a little country like New Zealand, we should be proud of that. But I'd say to them, I want to get to a position where by 2028 you can do this for everything. And so they are working at pace to get there, to take that load off teachers.
So AI, so we've got the tools to mark all our external and internal assessments without hiring more people.
That's the plan.
And the AI is good enough?
It is. Well, they've already done a whole lot of moderation. They always check the results, and actually they're on par with, if not better than humans. It's amazing.
Well, there you go. All right, folks. Now let me take and show you some quotes from my book. But before I do, look at this. China's AI teachers now handle 80% of daily school tasks. AI systems are grading papers. Oh, what's the word? Customizing lessons. Why would the lessons need to be customized? You say, well, Brandon, maybe it's because certain students are doing better in the area of their multiplication tables and others need help in the area of history. Possibly. Or is it customized because not every child is at the same level when it comes to having the state government approved ideas, values, feelings. Customizing lessons and helping millions of students learn more efficiently. According to who? Again, what's the standard? Now, let me take you to a PowerPoint presentation. This is from my book, Reclaiming a Nation at Risk, from 1995. That is also from my book from 2008 that came out in 2009 called Grave Influence. Grave Influence, 21 radicals ruling America from the grave. Now, you don't need to buy my book from 1995, where I have a lot of these quotes. You don't need to buy my book from 2008, where I also talk about this again. Those books are available to you free of charge if you're a Vault member. You go to worldviewtube.com/vault. If you're a Vault member, it's free. You'll find them in our library as an ebook. worldviewtube.com/vault. You'll also find some of them as audiobooks that I'm reading myself as audiobook. Let's start with this. Benjamin Bloom. Benjamin Bloom, he lived 1913 to 1999. Although it received tremendous exposure early in his public life, the term outcome-based education has long since been abandoned because parents figured out what it was all about and it wasn't good. And of course, outcome-based education has been hidden under many names: mastery learning, results-oriented, total quality management, quality schools, essential schools, transformational education, reformed education, restructured education, competency-based education, break the mold 21st century schools, exit-based teaching, high standards, performance-based learning. You ever heard any of these? High-level learning, mastery learning, formative learning, correctives teaching, extensions learning, summative evaluations, credentialing, curriculum, advancement teaching, results-based curriculum. All kinds of names that really hide what is known as outcome-based education. By Benjamin Bloom, Bloom's taxonomy. What is that all about? Well, the original concept behind outcome-based education came from the mastery learning plans of Benjamin Bloom. Now, here's William Spady. William Spady is one of outcome-based education's most well-known gurus. Okay? Here's what he declared. I heard him speak once in person. Quote, I pleaded with the group not to use the name mastery learning in the network's new name because the word mastery had already been discovered. I argued that we had about 5 years before they destroyed the term outcomes, but at least we could get a start. By the way, what are they doing here? They're changing the name of the reform, the education reform movement, as soon as parents figure out what this is. And some of you are too young to remember this, but in the early 1990s, the buzz was all about outcome-based education. I wrote one of the first books exposing outcome-based education, also known as mastery learning. And then, of course, it got many names changed. And this is the philosophies being promoted through George H. Bush, America 2000, when he was president, George H. Bush. And then under Bill Clinton, it was called America 2000 under George H. Bush. Then it was called Goals 2000 under Bill Clinton. And then it was called, what was it called? No Child Left Behind under George W. Bush. And then it was called Common Core under Barack Hussein Obama. It doesn't matter what you call the reforms. It's the same thing. It's mastery learning. It's Bloom's taxonomy. It's challenging a student's fixed beliefs that come from the parent. Dr. William Colson, he's a long-term colleague of psychologist Carl Rogers, quoted Dr. Rogers' approach to manipulating words, quote, change the name of the reform policy as fast as necessary to stay ahead of the critic, end quote. Let me get on to another couple quotes. Here's a book written by Dr. William Glasser, Schools Without Failure. Big promoter of OBE. He said, quote, we have to let students know there are no right answers. You have to let them see that there are many alternatives to certainty and right answers, end quote. Moral relativism. In his book, Taxonomy of Educational Objectives, Benjamin Bloom himself wrote this, quote, he calls for, quote, thorough going through and reorganization of attitudes and values, end quote. Now, let me ask you this. Where do you think those attitudes and values came from, folks? It came from the parents, right? Now, you're going to see as we take Bloom's taxonomy and we merge it with the computer technology called for by B.F. Skinner, behavioral psychologist, so that you can reinforce the proper attitudes and values on a timely schedule. So we're gonna combine Bloom's taxonomy with B.F. Skinner. So we go back to more quotes. In all our children learning, by the way, Dolly's chewing something up out here, guys. In all our children learning, Bloom discloses what he believes is the ultimate goal of education. Quote, the curriculum may be thought of as a plan for changing students' behavior and as the actual set of learning experiences in which students, teachers, and materials interact to produce the change in students, end quote. Well, now you're going to take the teachers out. You won't need to interact with the teacher anymore. You're going to interact with AI. But again, why are they so dead set on changing a student's behavior and their values or their attitudes? Because we know what education is really about. Here in America, the father of modern education, John Dewey, made it very clear. Education was not about letter grades. It was about preparing them for their proper place in life. And who determined that? The government. Remember John Dewey, father of progressive education? Signed the Humanist Manifesto 1. Went to Russia in the early 1930s to study the Karl Marx way of education and then came back to America. He said the purpose of education isn't letter grades, but to prepare them for their place in life. One, by the way, which the government will pick through what I've written about since the 1990s, workforce development boards, the merging of education with industrial production, the merging of the Department of Labor with the Department of Education. And I hope we do away with the Department of Education under the Trump administration. But I hope we don't just see that merge into the Department of Labor. Because when you merge education with industrial production, you're actually accomplishing the 10th plank of the Communist Manifesto. And then you'll have the government projecting the supply and demand of the workforce for various regions of the country. The government can barely project the weather. And now they want to tell you what jobs are going to be in demand 5 years, 10 years from now. And then say, well, we don't want to see a young person with a conservative Christian worldview become a pastor. We want a liberal, progressive to become a pastor. We don't want to see a constitutionalist, conservative Christian patriot become a doctor or a lawyer, broadcaster. We can't have those people elevated to those positions. Aldous Huxley wrote in his book that square pegs don't fit in round holes and tend to have dangerous thoughts about the social system and to infect others with that discontent. In other words, the government has to make sure the right people get into the right jobs so that they cannot influence too many people with the improper worldview, one that doesn't agree with the state, the government. How do you do that? Here's one. This is Benjamin Bloom in his own words. The careful observer of the classroom can see that the wise teacher, as well as the psychological theorist, use cognitive behavior and the achievement of cognitive goals to obtain effective goals. What's that mean? It means that you're going to use cognitive behavior to achieve the right attitudes, values, feelings, and beliefs. Now, it's not going to be the teacher doing it anymore. It's going to be AI. And AI is going to be able to track every individual student and reinforce the right ideas and values on a proper and timely schedule. Bloom said, quote, a large part of what we call good teaching is the teacher's ability to attain effective objectives through challenging the students' fixed beliefs. End quote. Please understand, effective objectives. That means attitudes, values, feelings, beliefs. But let me ask you, who put those beliefs and values there? Why do they need to be changed? Now, we all have seen this in the last few years through the rise of transgenderism, what they call woke ideology, what I've been writing about since the early 90s, which I call cultural Marxism. It's called political correctness, but the real word is cultural Marxism. It comes from the Frankfurt School that came to America in around 1933. 1933, they came here at the invitation, by the way, of John Dewey. Oh. And their goal was to have a revolution in America. Herbert Marcuse, one of the Frankfurt School guys, said the old way of revolution is old-fashioned, meaning at the end of a gun. The new way is diffused and dispersed disintegration of the system. By the system, they meant the free market system in America. And particularly, they said we want to go after the masculine American males, a patriarchal society. No Ronald Reagans, no John Waynes. Can't have John Wayne figures. Strong, masculine guys, patriotic. John Wayne was a huge patriot, hated communism. You can't have people like that. That's what the Frankfurt School said. So they started literally with the objective, they said, of going after education and media. Education and media. The Frankfurt School. Been writing about this for so many years. Now people know when I talk about the goal of challenging a student's fixed beliefs or worldview, they know automatically, instinctively, because they've seen enough in the last few years to know that the objective here is to destroy the values that have been put into those children's hearts and minds by their own parents. That's why they say, Bloom says, we're going to challenge the students' fixed beliefs. And AI is going to be able to keep track, unlike a teacher can. A teacher is going to have a hard time keeping track of all this and reinforcing it on a proper schedule. A computer can do it. But then you add in an AI buddy, an AI facilitator, an AI coach, an AI teacher. Alice Bailey, the New Age occultist, Alice Bailey, who channeled a demon, wrote over 10,000 pages together. She started what was known as Lucis Trust. It was Lucifer Trust. They changed the name to Lucis Trust, but it was originally known as Lucifer Trust. That's not me making it up. Go look it up. Their own website documents that. I've shown the screenshot in past programs where her own website, she's dead, but her own website that's still going on today says it was Lucifer Trust. They changed it to Lucis Trust. Well, her organization is followed by some, and has been followed by some of the biggest global leaders for years and years and years, decades and decades and decades. She had a lot of influence at the United Nations. By the way, she said that the outline of the New World Order, that's what they called it, could be seen by 2025. Wow. But here's what she said about education. The coming age, meaning the new age, called the new age, by the way, because it's thought to be an age or period or time where man starts to discover his godhood or his deity. Quote, the coming age will be as predominantly the age of group interplay, group idealism, and group consciousness, as the Piscean age has been one of personality unfoldment, for the will of the individual will voluntarily be blended into group will, end quote. So we're leaving the age of the Pisces, entering into the age of Aquarius, the age of new beginnings, again, thought to be a new age where men discover their godhood or their deity. This changing from the age of the Piscean to new age happened around, they think, most of them around the year 2000. But notice that this is going to be about what? A group will, collectiveness. What's another word for collectivism? Socialism. Now, how do you get everybody to agree to the same values? Through the educational system. through media, right? Through punishing the worldviews and the values and attitudes we don't agree with. Censorship. Dr. Raymond English, one of the educational elite, he gave a speech before the National Advisory Council on Educational Research and Improvement on April 2nd, 1987, in which he defined critical thinking as this way. By the way, who doesn't want their kid to be a critical thinker, right? You're like, oh yeah, my school teaches my child to be a critical thinker. Here's one of the questions you always need to ask. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Well, Dr. Raymond English told us, quote, critical thinking means not only learning how to think for oneself, but it also means learning how to subvert the traditional values in your society. You're not thinking critical if you're accepting the values that mommy and daddy taught you. That's not critical, end quote. His words, not mine. In 1964, there was a book written called Stability and Change in Human Characteristics by Bloom. Look at this. Efforts to control or change human behavior by therapy, by education, or by other means will be inadequate and poorly understood until we can follow behavior over a longer period. How do you do that? How do you follow behavior over a longer period? You think a teacher is going to do it? Is she going to be able to keep up with all these students and where they're at with the right values? No, but a computer can do it. AI can do it. And not only can a computer track it, but AI can now throw out custom curriculum, custom assignments to each student to help them in their area of remediation, right? Now, let's talk about Benjamin Bloom's worldview of changing fixed beliefs, attitudes, values, feelings, and emotions. Benjamin Bloom's taxonomy, higher order thinking skills, what the higher person should be thinking, how he changed fixed beliefs from the parents into the right values. Let's combine now. And by the way, every teacher that goes through a government school, college, university, learns, anybody that's going to be an educator learns Bloom's taxonomy, okay? Now let's combine that with behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner. He lived from 1904 to 1990, okay? In 1972, Skinner, behavioral psychologist, author, and professor at Harvard University, was given the Humanist of the Year award by the American Humanist Association. You noticing a theme here? An avowed atheist, Skinner was one of the early promoters of using a machine for what he called remediation. Its purpose was to aid in developing programmed learning or coercive thought control. Look at that. Programmed learning. Individualized. A behavioral psychologist, Skinner believed that man is controlled, listen out, by stimuli from the environment and therefore can never make a decision in which he exercises free will. In other words, man is a product of his environment. There's the controller and the one being controlled. There's the controller and the one being controlled. The father of really postmodernism, Friedrich Nietzsche. God is dead. That's Friedrich Nietzsche, right? We can smell his rotting corpse, killing God in the conscience of man. And by the way, there are people out there that want to defend Nietzsche. They're ignorant. Go read Nietzsche's books. The Antichrist. He used to sign his name, the Antichrist. He spent the last 11 years of his life out of his mind. He called Christianity one of the most evil things ever to be created. But Nietzsche referred to master morality and slave morality. Yeah, the controlled and the controllee. Whoever is producing the right stimuli, people are a product of their environment. Here's what he wrote, B.F. Skinner. We must expect to discover that what a man does is the result of specifiable conditions. And then once these conditions have been discovered, we can anticipate and to some extent determine his actions. So you set the right conditions, you get the right outcome. How do you monitor that? How do you program that? How do you teach that? How do you reward that? How do you punish the wrong response? Computers can do it very well. You can also do it, by the way, with peer pressure, public shaming. People will conform. Change comes from the conflict. Saul Alinsky wrote about the fact that ridicule is one of the most powerful ways to deal with opposition. Now, according to Skinner, in his book Freedom and Dignity, he talked about the haves and have-nots, just like so many talk about today, the haves and the have-nots. Quote, man plays two roles. One as a controller, as the designer of a controlling culture, and another as the controlled, as the products of a culture, end quote. Isn't that what I was just telling you? Isn't that what I was just telling you? Who's setting the condition? Who's doing the controlling? Who produces the culture? Isn't this interesting? Who produces the culture? In education, in media, entertainment. In a publication titled Technology and Outcome-Based Education in Minnesota. That's what it was titled. Here's what the Minnesota Department of Education describes about using machines. Quote, machines are becoming the information givers of our society. Since professional information givers of the past may quickly be replaced by these machines, teachers need to define themselves and act as diagnosers, prescribers, creative climate makers, instructional designers, coaches, and learning facilitators, end quote. Let me tell you something. Take that word machines and replace it with the word AI. Teachers now are out of date. They're out of mode. They are not really needed anymore. AI is going to take it, folks. And because at the end of the day, the purpose of education is not academics, not knowledge, the acquisition of truth. So you have wisdom, the application of truth. It is not about truth. It is about the destruction of truth. It is about propagating into children and brainwashing into children what is really a lie. Man is God. You're your own God. There are many gods. You can tap into your God consciousness. There is no absolute right. There's no such thing as one truth. There are many truths. Your truth, his truth, her truth. Postmodernism, truth and reality are created by man, not by God. All of this is a lie. Borders are bad. Nation states are bad. We have wars because of nation states. Therefore, we need open borders. We need a one world. We don't need individual sovereignty. We need globalism. That's what they teach. Education today is not about truth. It's about actually the opposite of truth. And machines, as the Minnesota Department of Education talked about so many years ago, using these machines to do this will now be AI. The article went on to say, quote, teachers must stop functioning as information givers, putting learners in rows, trying to transmit information through worksheets and lectures. I still have this document from the Minnesota Department of Education. It's probably 25 years old or more. I still have it in my library. Now look at this. This has been a long established goal. As early as 1968, the education reform movement laid the groundwork for its future policies. A report from an educational conference at the time reveals the agenda of the educational elite. This is all from my book from 1995, Reclaiming a Nation at Risk, and I used it, some of it again in a chapter on B.F. Skinner in my book, Grave Influence. All again available for free as PDFs. All my books are at worldviewtube.com/vault. Now look, here's what the report said. Quote, the teacher will have disappeared. What? When is this? 1968. A teacher will have disappeared, and his place will be taken by a facilitator of learning, focusing attention on the prime period of learning from infancy to age 6 or 8. He, the student, will never be graduated. In 1969, at a speech before the 22nd Annual Teachers Education Conference at the University of Georgia, Dean Corrigan predicted that B.F. Skinner's philosophy would be achieved. Quote, teaching machines will pace a student's progress, diagnose his weakness, and make certain that he understands a fundamental concept before allowing him to advance to the next lesson, end quote. His areas of weakness. Yeah. You think they're really going to do this, folks, so they understand their multiplication tables? Skinner and Karl Marx had the same mindset that dominates today's social engineers, who believe a perfect world or utopia can be created by establishing the right environment through conditioning, program learning, corrective thought control, coercion, brainwashing, manipulation, whatever you want to call it. Here's what the New World Encyclopedia says, combining Skinner's worldview with education. Quote, Skinner's work has also been applied to the field of education. He formulated principles of program learning in which reinforcement of small incremental steps with immediate reinforcement or reward for the correct responses would presumably lead to learning not only of sensory motor responses, but also of verbal responses and conceptual knowledge. In fact, his ideas have been successfully incorporated in teaching machines as well as computer-assisted instruction, end quote. Now you add in AI. Now add in artificial intelligence. Professor Kenneth Goodman, former president of the International Reading Association, he wrote to President Jimmy Carter, denouncing programs based on the philosophies of B.F. Skinner. Why? Because many of them were being funded at the time by the Department of Education. Oh, wait a minute, who started that? Who gave us that? Jimmy Carter. And Professor Kenneth Goodman was concerned. Remember, president of the International Reading Association. Here's what he said, quote, in behavior management, outcomes are assumed or arbitrarily determined, and the behavior of human learners is shaped, conditioned, reinforced, extinguished, rewarded, or punished until the learners achieve the target behavior. End quote. Well, folks, that's exactly what's going on now. Here's again, 1963. Under contract with the U.S. Office of Health, Education, and Welfare, the National Education Association managed what was called Technological Development Project. Remember, it's 1963, folks. It published a statement of what it was working on. Quote, 1963. Here we go. Ready? Another area of potential development in computer applications is the attitude-changing machine. Wait a minute, I thought it was all about academics, folks. No, they said attitude. Quote, another area of potential development in computer applications is the attitude-changing machine. Dr. Bertram Raven in the psychological department at the University of California in Los Angeles is in the process of building a computer-based device for changing attitude. There you go. And then under Jerome S. Berner and B.F. Skinner, they created what's called MAN, a course of study. And again, it was meant to mold the attitudes of children. Yep. And that was the assessment of a congressman by the name of John Conlon of Arizona. On April 9th, 1975, on the House floor, Representative Conlon warned about Skinner's program learning. And he warned that it would, quote, be involved in, quote, alienating them from the beliefs and moral values of their parents, end quote. That's right. Dr. Chester M. Pierce, professor of education at Harvard, he gave a speech addressing the Association for Childhood Education International in April of 1972. Are you ready for this quote? 1972, quote, every child who enters school at the age of 5 is mentally ill because he enters school with an allegiance toward our elected officials, our founding fathers, our institutions, the preservation of this form of government that we have, patriotism, nationalism, sovereignty. All this proves that the children are sick because a truly well individual is one who has rejected all those things and is what I would call the true international child of the future, end quote. In October of 1999, Phyllis Schlafly, she did a report on the state of Massachusetts and how they had developed a tracking system to follow the personal data on students. Now, I'm not going to go through all this, but she warned that it would create customized programs for students. That was back in what, 1999? Yeah. Can you imagine now today, 2025, and AI? Now look at this. 1970, April 15th, 1970, the Washington Star. The Washington Star is not even around anymore. You guys know I love to collect newspapers. I have, thanks to my mother, the framed last edition of the Washington Star. But in April 15th, 1970, the Washington Star featured an article. You ready for it? Quote, set up data banks. Allen urges schools. It was an article by John Matthews. And he quotes then U.S. Commissioner of Education James Allen, who is encouraging local school systems to have a central diagnostic center. To do what? Quote, find out everything possible about the child and his background. The center would know just about everything there is to know about the child, his home and family background, his culture and language deficiency, his health and nutrition needs, and his general potential as an individual, end quote. Why would they want to know his general potential as an individual? Because you're going to go to the 10th plank of the Communist Manifesto and you're going to merge education with industrial production. And then you're going to assign every person to their right place in the social hierarchy. Because again, Aldous Huxley, square pegs don't fit in round holes and tend to have dangerous thoughts about the social system and infect others with their discontent. Yeah, we can't have someone that's a conservative Christian pro-lifer becoming a medical doctor. Now, can we? Allen suggests that professionals, listen now, would write a prescription for the child, quote, and if necessary, for his home and family as well, end quote. Now, again, I've been writing about this since the early 90s, speaking about it since the early 90s. Get my book from 93, my book from 95, my book, Grave Influence, from 2008. You don't need to buy them. They're free if you're a member of the Vault. WorldviewTube.com/vault. They've been at this, folks, when it comes to using computers since the early 1960s. Now add in artificial intelligence. Now, according to Allen, in that article there in the Star, quote, every child would be, quote, evaluated before 6 years of age, then again at 11, and then again at 15. Well, you won't have to do any evaluating now. Now we know exactly what's going on because of their AI that's keeping constant score in real time. Here's the Dallas Morning News, December 12th, 1970. School survey to begin. Article by Karen Elliott. By 1972, administrators expect to have complete computerized records on each of the 180,000 students in the district. When this is completed, they will begin compiling information on Dallas teachers and on students' home life and socioeconomic background. And I could just go on and on, but I must wrap this up. Let's close with this. In 1994, the IEEE published a summary on the abuses that could occur using these computers. Quote, number one, the collecting of psychological, medical, sociological data on students and their families without their knowledge or consent via the National Assessment of Educational Progress. That's a test, NAEP, the National Assessment of Educational Progress. It's called the Nation's Report Card. There's the goal to make this mandatory. Right now it's given periodically, randomly. The goal is to make it mandatory. Two, the going online, listen now, the going online of the education supercomputer, the elementary and secondary integrated data system in 1989. The system linked to the U.S. Department of Education with all 50 states of education department. Yeah, they've been at this a while, folks. Three, promoting the above under the rubric of educational restructuring under names like outcome-based education while withholding from the public the nature and extent of the data collection. Oh yeah, we could go into Charles Darwin and keep adding all these guys. This is all from my book, Grave Influence, 21 Radicals Ruling America from the Grave. It's a hardcover book. It's timeless. I think you can get the book for like $2 or something right now. I told them they could reprint it. We sold it at cost at worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. But folks, I wanted to bring that to you tonight. Something I've been writing about, speaking about since the early 90s, showing you that since the early 60s, they've been talking about using computers to track the attitudes, values, feelings, and beliefs of children, and then reinforce the right values on a timely schedule. Computers, they said. They could have never envisioned customized, personalized, interactive artificial intelligence. And I began this segment by playing videos for you on how schools are already picking up this in America and around the world. How many parents know what I'm talking about tonight? Not many. How many would actually sit through a presentation like this? Sadly, not many, because the national attention span for most Americans is about that length of a gnat. They really don't care. They need to get back to their binge watching of their latest social program on Netflix or wherever. They got a ball game to watch. They got an event to attend. They just trust the government schools. Drop them off, open the door, let them out, pick them up, if they even do that. Sadly, very few parents actually even care anymore. And those that say they do, well, if they really do, they would endeavor to learn what I'm telling them tonight to try to protect their own children and grandchildren. Oh yeah, there is a segment of the population that's awake. Sadly, most of them are just women. Where are the dads? When I wrote my first two books on education, almost everything I got to write those books came from moms across the U.S. And at that time, we didn't really use internet, right? I was getting it in manila folders from mothers from all over the country because I was out speaking and doing radio conferences, and they would mail me what was in their child's school in a manila folder. And who was it that was booking me to come in and speak at these events? Mostly moms. That's a very small segment. And guess who was the one opposing us? Not always, but largely. When they would want to go and rent a building to hold the conference, they would go to a local church. And most of the times, the church would say no. No, the superintendent goes to our school. Our church. The superintendent of the schools goes to our church. No, the president of the school board goes to our church. That would be offensive. There were some schools, churches, but generally those churches had a Christian school. So they were already on board. The point is, most of our opposition in the early 90s and through the 90s was coming from churches. So no wonder the parents aren't on board. They're shepherds, so-called. Weren't even bringing this issue up. And in fact, when it came up, they made sure we didn't use their building in many, many cases. Again, the churches that did, generally, they either had a Christian school of their own or they were in partnership with a Christian school in town. But a lot of the churches, they wouldn't touch us with a 10-foot pole. And now we are here a few decades later, and we wonder why so many American parents are oblivious to the intellectual kidnapping of their children. And many of them will think AI is wonderful because it's now going to personalize my child's education. Here's again, where you need to ask questions. What are you assessing them on? What's the standard? Is it reading, writing, arithmetic, history, biology, science? Or is it effective objectives, attitudes, feelings, and beliefs? We've been warned. We've been warned. We're about to enter literally, as the followers of Alice Bailey say, a new age. Oh boy, we are indeed. And most parents, and sadly, most Christians, are not prepared to enter this new age where technology like AI will be used in ways that we can't even imagine to undermine the worldview and the values of our own children. And if you want to go to sleep on this now, and I don't think most of you do, or you wouldn't be watching the program, but those that do, they're going to pay a heavy price. because many of them are going to find out that their kids eventually are hostile to them. And I'm seeing growing videos online where grown children have no relationship with their parents because they have been led to believe through all of their education, and particularly their college and university education, that their parents have a poisonous, intolerant, hateful, bigoted worldview. Because what? Because they're Christians, because they're conservatives, because they believe in right and wrong. Oh, so many parents would go back and do it differently now if they only knew then what they know now. I would urge you to share this. We post it online with anyone you know that has young children. You see, I have one quote from years ago where an educrat talked about how great the computers would be because the parent would not be able to get in between the child and the curriculum. They wouldn't even really know what it is their child's being taught. And didn't that happen during COVID when the kids came home and were learning over the computers? Some of the parents found out what the kids were being taught and they're like, what? Yeah. Time to wake up. It's past time. They're abducting our kids and our grandkids and thereby our country. Education. The cultural Marxists came here in 1933 and they said we're going after education and media. We're going to have a cultural revolution, and you're seeing it in full swing right now. But imagine how far it's going to go when they get the computers involved. And then, when we wake up in a few years and we don't have conservative talk show hosts like me, conservative doctors speaking up and speaking out like Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Thorpe, Dr. Moon, you're going to be shocked. People are going to wonder, where'd all the conservative Christian leaders go? Oh, they were filtered out in their educational system because we knew what their worldview was and we corrected it, or if it wasn't corrected, we made sure they didn't advance. Because again, square pegs don't fit in round holes. And they tend to have dangerous thoughts about the social system and infect others. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. I want to thank you for all your support at WVWFoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at WVWFoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at WVWFoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. Is the government tracking you? Do they have access to all your data? Well, if you go to worldviewtalk.com, you'll find out about a cell phone company that, does not store your data. They don't do that. This is what they're known for. They don't store your data. You have privacy. You're not being tracked. That's why a lot of folks are turning to worldviewtalk.com. You'll find their prices are very competitive. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com. Again, worldviewtalk.com. Oh, while you're there, not only do they have cell phones that aren't tracking you, you can find out about how to get a satellite phone. Should the whole system go down and you want to communicate with a family member or a loved one, you might want to have a satellite phone. Or how about their solar generators? They have great solar generators. Check them all out right now. Worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com. Joining me now is Dr. James Thorpe. He has a program each and every week right here on Worldview Tube with Dr. Moon. And in fact, Logan tells me that his broadcast the other day did some big numbers, didn't it, Logan? Did you tell him about it? Yeah, I hope you did. Well, he joins me now to talk about a article that I found today. Here's the headline from Slay News. Nurse blows whistle on COVID cover-up. Nurse blows whistle on cover-up of 5,000% surge in fetal deaths caused by COVID vaccines. This is exactly what Dr. Thorpe, who was seeing 8,000 patients a year, warned was coming and would happen. Dr. Thorpe, welcome to the broadcast again. Thanks for being with us.
Brannon, thank you so much for having me on your show. And I can't help but just use this as a segue because I've had the privilege and honor of watching your programming for the last 10 minutes. And I want to say that you have been prescient in terms of where you saw things going 30 years ago. And I believe the reason for that is because of your focus on the Word of God and on the Bible, but also recognizing exactly being a watchman, as Ezekiel 33 describes, and knowing the signs of the times, even back in the 90s. So you knew the trajectory. And I'd be remiss. I don't mean to hijack the subject that you brought up because it's near and dear to my heart. But what you spoke about has got to be the greatest advertisement in the world for homeschooling.
Yeah, indeed.
And I want to, again, focus. I've talked about my small, allegedly conservative, allegedly Christian community of Gulf Breeze, Florida, where Maggie, my dear wife, and I reside. And we talked about some bad things that were going on there. And I can't help myself but review what's come out in just the last 2 weeks. Gulf Breeze High School systems, just in the last 2 weeks, have put 2 individuals in jail. One of them, a teacher 2 weeks ago, who was having underage sex with one of the students. Brannon, this is one of the allegedly best schools in the state of Florida. We live in a small community of 6,000, and the sexual sin that has taken place at this high school and the middle school and the grade school. We had yet another case just that broke the news. You can Google it and look at it. It's all over Twitter. It's all over TikTok. This is an 18-year-old senior that was dealing in pedophilia and child pornography, infant pornography, and his mother is a high-ranking school system teacher or administrator. And can you imagine that? And letting him, knowing this was going on, and letting him prance around the middle school and the grade school and putting all the other families at risk. Brannon, I've never seen anything like this in my lifetime. The explosion of evil in the major churches in that small community of Gulf Breeze. Horrible sexual sin exploited, pastors having underage sex, people having orgies on the altars. This is in our small community. It doesn't end there. Major attorneys in that small community being indicted and put in jail for underage pedophilic sex. One of the commissioners of the city council, a senior administrator, and I should mention his name, but I won't, being caught in a pedophilia ring, filming young children in a bathroom. It goes on and on and on. And I've never seen anything like it. And all I can say is that what would we expect when the last administration celebrates all these gay pedophiles, these trans women dancing barely nude in front of young children and family, toddlers, 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds, kindergarten classes, these drag queen shows. This promulgates, this amplifies and normalizes this horrible sexual deviance. And it's really awful. And I hope that people from Gulf Breeze are watching this and will watch this. There's a petition going around. We, the conservative Christians who uphold biblical principles in Gulf Breeze, Florida, were outraged at what's going on.
Well, you should. And I want to get some of the links sent to me on that, Doctor. It's interesting you bring this up tonight, because today on my worldviewreport.com, the website where we track, aggregated news, I had this article I put up. Teacher pleads guilty to years-long sex abuse of 13-year-old schoolgirl. This is a woman abusing a 13-year-old student. This is daily. I just last week I was talking about that. The fact that we find almost on a daily basis now somewhere in the country where a teacher is molesting a student or sexting a student. Last week we showed you from the New York Post a young teacher sending what was described as pornographic videos to this young teenager, underage male. You and I are not that far apart in age. This kind of thing was unheard of when we were growing up. If it went on, we didn't hear about it. It was very rare. Even the thought that a teacher would engage in this behavior would never even cross our minds. Something has gone astray here, and it's not just the guys; it's the women that are the predators now.
Exactly the case at Gulf Breeze High School. One of the women teachers, 35 years old, having sex with one of her students. This is awful. I'm outraged. I know that God is more outraged than I am, but this is the best advertisement for homeschooling that one could ever have. And I believe, and you can prove me wrong, and you may not agree with me, but I believe, Brannon, that the elite of our country, many of the global leaders globally, and also in our country, in the United States of America, including past presidents, Congress people involved with these sexual pedophile rings, and it's inculcated into the culture of our ruling leaders. And this is why people turn a blind eye. This is why they promote the drag queens. I really believe that the past presidents, including Biden, including Obama, including the Clintons, and many Republicans, including the Bushes, I believe have been involved with child trafficking and child sex and adrenochrome and these satanic rituals. This is our leaders. These are the global leaders who are running the world.
Well, it's grieving, and I just put into a search engine some of the stories out of Gulf Breeze, and they're popping up one after the other. And that's a small community. That's a small community. So, and it's not unique to Gulf Breeze. It really isn't. We read about this kind of thing going on, and it just is shocking. But it seems as though the country, in many regards, has been given over per Romans 1. And now you talk about the murder of babies. You were warning about this way ahead of the curve. Here's the headline. Nurse blows whistle on cover-up of 5,000% surge in fetal deaths caused by COVID vaccines. You were on my broadcast. Now, it's been a few years now, warning that this was going to be the case. What do you know about this?
It's Michelle Gershman. Michelle Gershman is a dear friend of mine. Michelle Gershman was a postpartum nurse, is a postpartum nurse in a major hospital in Fresno, California. And we have published this extensively. What happened was that, 2 years ago now, I think it was 2023, it was in the summer of 2023, she was outraged. First of all, her mother was killed by this hospital, by the remdesivir protocol. And then she was doing her job, and she was a postpartum nurse. For those viewers, I'm using big words. That means after moms give birth, they go to a ward where moms who have given birth are taken care of. That's called a postpartum ward. And all of the nurses involved with labor, with where they had the babies, the ward that they had the babies in the postpartum ward, were sent an email, Brannon. And in this email stated, you've all noticed a massive increase in stillbirths. And the stillbirths in that 1 month had risen in excess of 22 per month. This was documented in a senior administrator of women's health email to all the nurses. And the nurses were told in a matter-of-fact way, this is getting more frequent, you're wasting too much time, taking care of these moms and the trauma, and detailed how you just throw these kids in a bucket and, send them off. We got to get more, and Nurse Michelle Spencer was outraged. She was outraged. And so she basically contacted CHD, Children's Health Defense Fund. She had contacted me, and she's been broadcasting this ever since. So, to her, going back to her numbers, the usual rate of fetal death. Now, remember, this is not a miscarriage. Fetal death occurs at or after halfway through pregnancy or 20 weeks of pregnancy, 20 weeks. So this is a relatively rare event. This is not the commonly occurring pregnancy loss, not to underscore and not to underestimate the emotional trauma that a miscarriage causes, but that's much earlier in pregnancy and much more frequent. So yeah, she was seeing about, an average of 4 per year, 1 per quarter. And of course, that was a very low risk population. So, one per quarter would be very low compared to national statistics, but certainly even if it were 1 per month, even if it were 1 per week, what she saw and what the administrator documented was a 22-fold increase in the very least. This is highly improbable statistically. And I published on that in many of my peer-reviewed publications on Michelle Spencer and the Fresno experience. So now what's happened is that Children's Health Defense and their attorneys are suing this hospital for, number one, and I'm not an attorney, so I may not describe this accurately, but Nurse Michelle Spencer is suing the major hospital in Fresno for a couple of things. Number one, she's suing them for retaliation because they did retaliate her. And then number two, for hiding and not being transparent and not investigating the cause. They just blew this off. So this is a major lawsuit, and the Children's Health Defense attorney that is leading it has been in contact with me. I will be an expert witness.
Wow.
And this could blow the whole thing open. And let me say one more thing on record, and I've tweeted this. You may have missed my post. There are many that have come to me and said, Dr. Thorpe, you need to sue the hospital that fired you, SSM Health of St. Louis, which is a much larger healthcare system than that in Fresno. And the attorneys are saying, you need to do this, not because they breached their contract, employment contract with me. Maggie and I wouldn't really do that because I don't want to get involved in that type of litigation. But these attorneys are saying now, wait a minute, Dr. Thorpe, forget about the breach of contract that SSM had with you. You have a much larger case here because guess what? They retaliated against you, acknowledging that you were a model physician in that system. They retaliated and fired you because you testified of the same thing in the United States Senate 6 months earlier, and you broadcasted on the Tucker Carlson show while he was with Fox News 5 months before you were fired. And indeed, that's true. So now Maggie and I are seriously contemplating taking on a massive lawsuit against SSM Health Systems, which is one of the largest Catholic healthcare systems in the United States of America.
Wow. Breaking news tonight with Dr. Thorpe. So before we go, Dr. Thorpe, well, please keep us posted on that. We'd like to cover that. This 5,000%, go back to the headline. Nurse whistleblower, uncover up a 5,000% surge in fetal deaths caused by COVID vaccines. How long do you think this is going to continue? Is it going to be something for a year or two and then be over? Or are these young women that got the shot and they continue to have the spike protein producing in their body, many of them going to continue to experience miscarriages over and over?
The answer to the latter is yes. And, I'm really on clinical site at a hospital, undisclosed location in the Midwest, very large hospital. And I'm seeing patients in the office, outpatients, high-risk obstetrics, and also hospitalized high-risk obstetrical patients. So I am aware that there's good news and bad news here. In the community that I'm in, I believe that even the administrators now know that there's something going on. They're aware of my testimony. It's not hidden. Most of the staff in this hospital know who I am, know where I've testified, have seen my publications, have read my book. Most of the patients in this community do not take any vaccinations. It's radically changed over the last 4 years. And for that, I'm very grateful to God and very impressed with this hospital and this community and the level of awareness that they have now, questioning the lies of the vaccine that have been perpetrated on not just American citizens, but global citizens. But the bad news is this: even those patients that haven't had a vaccine, a COVID-19 vaccine in 4 years, still have high levels of spike antibody, meaning their spike proteins are still high, and they're still having very adverse complications. And so, again, there is hope. There is hope. And I have a protocol for, because I have many, many patients, not just from the United States of America, but globally, that call me. I don't know how they get a hold of my number or my contact information, but they get a hold of me and said, Dr. Thorpe, we now have come to believe that this COVID-19 vaccine has been catastrophic for our reproductive history. How can you help me? And there is help. And I don't have time to detail the protocol that I've recommend. There are many very, very well-known women of reproductive age, very well-known in this country, that have contacted me, that were on the opposite side, that were pushing these vaccines, now realize they were in error. It was a mistake. I'm not, of course, never mention any names. but there is hope. And, the extended spike supplement, the McCullough protocol is part of my protocol that I use to help these women before they get pregnant again and offer them an improved, God willing, a good outcome, reduce their risk of these problems that I've continued to see.
Let me show you. Thank you, Dr. Thorpe. Let me show you his X account so you guys can follow him. Here it is, at J.A. Thorpe, MFM, at J.A. Thorpe, MFM. There it is, right there, folks. Now, we have 2 docs with Dr. Thorpe and Dr. Moon on Saturday and Sundays, right, Logan? What time? Saturday at 4 Central?
4 o'clock CST on Saturday.
Sundays, 11 a.m. Central, I'm told. And you can also go to worldviewtube.com/TWODOCS. Worldviewtube.com.
We have a very special guest.
Ooh.
We have a very special guest coming up. It's Mr. John Leake, the incredible author of the new book with Dr. Peter McCullough.
Excellent. And you'll find it all Saturday and Sundays. And then again on demand, worldviewtube.com/TWODOCS, 2 docs. Worldviewtube.com//2 docs. Dr. Thorpe, thank you for all you're doing. Thank you for being a guest.
Thank you very much for your incredible reporting, Brannon.
It's a team effort. Ditto to you. Thank you. Dr. James Thorpe checking in. Follow him on X, folks, at J.A. Thorpe, MFM, at J.A. Thorpe, MFM, to follow him on X. And then tell all your family and friends about the show he hosts with Dr. Moon, 2 doc. You heard him mention the Ultimate Spike Detox. You can go to worldviewhealthcare.com to get it. Worldviewhealthcare.com. That's our page, the wellness company. Worldviewhealthcare.com. Scroll down the page. You'll see it right there. Ultimate Spike Detox. Worldviewhealthcare.com. Worldviewhealthcare.com. We'll be right back. All right, guys, that's our broadcast for tonight. Hey, don't forget about Worldview Talk. I have the satellite from Worldview Talk. It is a free satellite phone when you sign up for one of their very reasonable plans. Go to worldviewtalk.com, find out, or you can use that number 1-866-738-3224, 1-866-738-3224. Get a free satellite phone when you sign up for one of their very reasonable plans. You travel to areas where cell coverage is bad, you don't have to worry about it with a satellite phone. All you need is direction to the sky. Worried about the power grid going down or cell towers going down? You still want to talk to people that have a satellite phone or have the device that lets you text through a satellite, the bivy? You can get a bivy. It's all at worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com. Okay? You get a solar generator. I have one. Bulletproof backpack. You can get Starlink for free. Sign up for one of their very reasonable plans and you get Starlink for free. All of it at worldviewtalk.com. The beanies that knock down the EMFs, give your body a little bit of a break. Okay? It's all there. The Worldview water. We just got a bunch of those filters in, didn't we, Caleb? This is the filter I have under my kitchen sink. Also the water I drink, the water Dolly drinks. Getting all those chemicals out of your water. Okay? worldviewwater.net, worldviewwater.net, if you want to get that. We have a lower third for that. worldviewwater.net. Okay? What else do we got here before we go? Let's see. Don't forget about our national conference coming up. Look at that lineup. Look at that lineup. Worldviewstore.com. Worldviewstore.com. $99. That's a cheap national conference because we're not trying to make money on this. We're just trying to break even. Come hear all these speakers in person, folks. In person. What a lineup. Okay? Full details, the hotels, everything. Worldviewstore.com. Worldviewstore.com. And then while you're at Worldview Store, why not pick up some of our business cards? They're free. Caleb says we've now sent out over 20,000 of these business cards, absolutely free of charge. I feel like I'm about to play gin. Get my cards all in shape. I learned to play gin over the 4th of July. I love to play gin now. Melissa and I play gin at night several times a week before we go to bed. Kind of our way to unwind, play a little gin. But I have to tell you, she's super good at it. She's like, I don't know how you guys play gin, but when she gets gin, she takes the card out, turns it upside down, lays it on the stack. Gin. I'm like, how is that even humanly possible? Okay? There's no way you should have gin that fast. I don't know. I cannot believe how good she is at it. It's really disgusting. But it's keeping me humble, I'll tell you that, because she is good. I'm trying to get better. I'm watching videos on how to win at gin, and I'm learning some stuff, but she's still, I don't know. Doesn't seem to make sense to me how good she is at it. But anyway, get your business cards. Okay, get your business cards. Worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. Let's see what else do we got here before we go, guys. Oh, don't forget about our Bible channel, worldviewtube.com/Bible, 24 hours a day Bible teaching. Our prophecy channel, worldviewtube.com/prophecy. Our history channel, worldviewtube.com/history. Our health channel, all the great health interviews with doctors and functional medicine folks. That's worldviewtube.com/health. And one way, by the way, we're able to push out all this programming for free is because you support us with our foundation. It helps us push it out as a education, ministry, broadcast, and education and public service. WorldviewFoundation.com. Please go there now, will you? We are looking for more regular monthly contributors, folks. WorldviewFoundation.com. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. WorldviewFoundation.com. Okay? Let's see. Is there anything else I'm missing? Don't forget about our Roku channel, our iOS app, our Android app. You can get those at worldviewtube.com/apps, worldviewtube.com/apps. Tell your family and friends about the broadcast, folks. We're growing. One way and one reason is because of you. You're helping push out the broadcast to people. We sure do appreciate that. So thank you. Thank you for telling all your family and friends about the programming here at Worldview Tube. All right. All right. Hope you have a great evening. Let's see. Who do I have tomorrow? Do I have any guests booked for tomorrow, guys? Yes. Mark Mitchell. Thursday night, Michael Reagan. Still got some great guests coming up this weekend. All right. Thanks for watching. May God save America. Take care. And many other issues that are going on in the Middle East. And then at 1:30, we are going to jump in for a few moments with Nicole Pearson. She is an attorney. She is a mother. She is a wife, obviously, a mother and a wife, and an attorney and a real go-getter. She has been someone we've been interviewing now for what? What do you think, Logan? 3 or 4 years? And how many of you know that right now your grandchild, male or female, your minor child or grandchild could be taken by someone, a quote, boyfriend, girlfriend, child trafficker, to California. And good luck getting your child back. California is a sanctuary state for LGBTQ abortion. And there, we had Nicole on last night. We're bringing her here. She testified before a committee, a congressional committee in her home state of California. This is a red alert for every parent in the country. Don't say, oh, well, that's just California. Because if they take your child to California and they fill out one piece of paper, just fill out one piece of paper, no, nothing notarized, just simply fill out one piece of paper. The state of California is going to be involved in the legal process of kidnapping your minor child. All of this sounds too crazy. It's like, no, he has to be exaggerating. Yeah, that's what I asked her last night. This sounds so crazy. It has to be exaggeration. It's not. She's an attorney and she's very careful. How many of you know who Jack Hibbs is? Jack Hibbs. He's the pastor of a Calvary Chapel church in California. He is on video. Maybe I'll find the video. Maybe we could find that video, Logan. Play it. Jack Hibbs is saying that if this bill becomes law in California, you should, and you're a parent, you should pack up your bags and get out of California. Now, I don't know about you, but if you're the pastor of a church and you have spent years building up that flock, which he's done, do you think on a whim he's going to just encourage his congregation, his sheep, to scatter? No, but he's being a good shepherd. And he's warning the flock that if this bill passes, you are going to need to flee the state of California. I'm going to play the video, which is audio, obviously, for radio. I'm going to play it right now, and I need you to tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, Truth Social. Tell everybody you know to tune in at worldviewtube.com. Tune in to the VCY America terrestrial station you're listening to in your market, whatever those call letters are, that frequency is. They can go to vcy.org. We need people listening. Everyone listening. This is a red alert at 1:30 Central. I'm going to go to Dr. Rob Lindstedt first, but listen to what Jack Hibbs just said in the last few days to his church. Listen.
The meat market bill. It is a trafficking bill. It is unbelievable. So much so, don't believe me. Go to realimpact.us. It allows an individual to obtain this new form that comes with the bill. They fill it out, and they can name a child. John goes to a school in California and says, I have this form, and I am asking for Susie Q to be received into my custody. I want to take her out of school. The bill does not require a background check for this man, requires no identification, no driver's license, no nothing. There's no requirement in the bill for the school to call you to ask you if it's okay if John takes your daughter out of school. If this bill passes, I am going to ask you to leave the state of California. You're going to need to pack up and you're going to have to get out. You got to get out. You got to run with your kids. You got to go.
And if you do, all I say is don't bring your California garbage to Tennessee, which I can't imagine any of you listening to this broadcast are going to do that anyway. Your worldview is probably that of a Christian worldview, or you wouldn't be listening to this program, unless you're just hostile and you like to try to get into the phone calls to do a spiritual attack on us. Or you're monitoring us, because there are some out there that just like to monitor the program. But the bulk of you, 99.99% of you, are on board with our worldview. So you're welcome to come here to Dixie, Tennessee, the South. But any of your friends, any of your crazy liberal friends that don't like this bill but are liberal and every other way, tell them they are not welcome. The door is closed. We're not going to California our Tennessee or Alabama or these other states that have stood up to this. But yes, you're welcome. And maybe Jack Hibbs himself will come here to Tennessee and bring his whole church here and just set up camp here. Hey, I got my editor, and her husband and family out of California. How long did I get Jill and her family out of there? 5 years ago? It's been 5 years? She's a lifelong Californian. I knew her dad. That's how I met her. Her dad was a world-renowned surgeon who loved my broadcast. World-renowned surgeon. He loved my broadcast. We became friends, and he introduced me to his daughter and son-in-law. And she became my editor, still is. And I just begged them, get out of California, get out of California, get out of California. And they did about 5 years ago. And they live in the Knoxville area. And they love it. I wish they'd done it sooner. And I guess the church they go to, the pastor asked them this last week or recently, how many of you are from California? Over half the church raised their hand. Yeah. This is a red alert, folks. 1:30 Central. WorldviewTube.com, VCY.org.